Hey guys, tonight we drift far from glowing screens and glowing city lights deep into the ancient rhythms of the West African forest where time doesn't tick, it echoes. Imagine this, you're lying on a raffia mat in the still velvet dark night of a Yoruba village. There's no electricity, no notifications buzzing in your pocket. Instead, you feel at first a subtle throb in the earth beneath you. Then you hear it, the soft, deliberate duk dun dun of a talking drum carrying a message through the trees. You have no idea what it's saying, but you know it's saying something. And in this world, that beat isn't just music, it's a calendar, a clock, a social network, and a spiritual pulse rolled into one. And yep, you probably won't survive this if you're the type who panics when your phone's battery drops to 2%. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing how global this sleepy little history nook has become. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle barefoot across a clay courtyard lit by moonlight and the ember glow of a dying cooking fire. Somewhere off in the distance, a cluster of drums begins to stir again. This isn't a concert, it's not even a rehearsal. These beats are part of your everyday world. They tell you that dawn is near, that the hunters are preparing to leave, that the elders will soon gather beneath the Iroko tree for morning prayers. In Yoruba land, stretching across what is now southwestern Nigeria, parts of Benin and Togo, time was never carved into hours and minutes. It was played. The talking drum or gong spoke with an authority no mechanical clock could match. You didn't look at your wrist to see the time. You listened for it. Even the most basic of rhythms could hold layered meanings. A particular cadence, sharp and steady, might signal the rising sun. Another pattern, warmer and more elaborate, could indicate it was time for the community to start gathering for the day's first chores. There's something both deeply logical and deeply human about this. After all, why measure time in cold digits when you can measure it in pulses and shared vibrations that tickle the skin and stir the soul? You pass a drummer sitting on a low stool, cradling a drum shaped like an hourglass. His arm swings rhythmically, adjusting the pressure of the tension cords to change pitch mid-beat. That's the magic of the gangon. It mimics the tone and pitch of Yoruba speech. It literally talks. Now you may be asking, wait, how does a drum talk? Good question. Yoruba is a tonal language, meaning that the same word can mean different things. Depending on how it's pronounced, high tone, it might mean father. It might mean mid-tone. It might mean to split. Low tone. You just told someone they smell like a goat. The talking drum reproduces those tones, not words per se, but the melody of words. So in the hands of a skilled drummer, a beat isn't just rhythm, it's sentence, story, command. One mainstream fact scholars agree on these drums could convey full proverbs and phrases across distances, usually with a bit of redundancy for clarity. A typical drum message might say in rhythm, "The child of the king's younger sister has arrived at the market with 2 goats and no coin." And yes, that's not a metaphor. Someone's definitely about to start bartering hard for that goat meat. But here's where it gets fascinatingly fuzzy. Historians still argue whether the drum language was fully codified or relied on memorized phrases that only made sense in context. Some believe it was never a full language as we know it, but more like a melodic hint system. It's kind of like trying to text in emoji, only effective but extremely dependent on shared culture and a whole lot of guesswork. And then there's the fringe theory that talking drums were also used to measure not just time, but emotional states of the community, like stay with me here. Some drummers would alter their playing subtly during times of stress, grief, or elation, syncing the social body into a kind of collective rhythm therapy. You're essentially vibing your way through a crisis. Honestly, better than scrolling WebMD. But let's come back to that courtyard. The night is thinning. The first light slips into the sky and the drum beat shifts. A lower rhythm, slower, steadier. That tells you it's the pre-dawn segment when the hunters will leave before animals stir. The next rhythm, sharper, more agitated, signals that it's time for the women to begin sweeping the compound. Not because it's 6 a.m., but because the drum said so. No hourglasses, no sundials, not yet. Bells, not. Just wood leather and muscle, and somehow you always know when it's time to do something. Think of it this way, your Fitbit might buzz to tell you it's time to stand. But in Yoruba culture, a drum might coax you gently. Arise for the morning wears the red wrapper. See poetry. Push notifications. You walk through the village now and the sense of time isn't linear. It's cyclical, organic. You don't feel like you're chasing the hours, you're flowing with them. You know when the market opens because the drum plays the name of the market deity. You know it's late afternoon because the drum mimics the call of a bird associated with dusk. There's a rhythm for the time when palm wine gets freshest. Yes, even happy hour had a beat. Of course not every drum beat was public. There were secret codes, 2 drum signals that only the initiated could decipher. Maybe it told of a spirit's arrival. Maybe it marked a taboo being lifted. Or maybe it was just gossip in rhythm form. You'd be surprised how many public figures' reputations were ruined via a cleverly phrased drum riff. Call it the shade beat. And like any truly great bedtime story, there's always one sleeper fact. In some regions, drummers weren't allowed to play certain rhythms unless a specific star constellation was visible in the sky. Yup, your night shift vibes had to be astronomically approved. As the sun finally crests the forest canopy, you realize something subtle but profound. You've never once asked, what time is it? Instead, you've known what moment you're in. The talking drums have folded you into their rhythm, and in return, you've surrendered your minutes and seconds to something older, slower, and far more melodic. The sun has fully risen now, and the rhythm has changed again. You're walking past small homes with thatched roofs, the morning breeze carrying smells of charcoal smoke and fermented yam. A new drum pattern pulses softly from the edge of the village. It's not loud, not urgent. Just a steady series of beats with the occasional flourish like someone clearing their throat politely in rhythm. This beat, you learn, is morning scheduling. Yes, seriously, drum-based to-do lists. While you shuffle through sleep-crusted dreams, someone's out there managing the town's time blocks via percussion. The pattern currently playing, it loosely translates to something like, farmers, sharpen your hoes. Market wives, gather your goods. Children carry water before the sun scolds your forehead. There's a reason you're not panicking about your calendar app. In this village, everything happens in rhythm. Time isn't so much kept as it is performed. You follow the beat to its source, a lanky drummer perched on a wooden bench beneath a mango tree. He doesn't look at you. He's too busy adjusting the tension strings around his drum with quick fingers and furrowed brow. Each stroke he plays carries the weight of social expectation. If he messes up the rhythm, someone might miss a wedding or a communal prayer or the start of a yam festival. It's like being Google Calendar, but with way more calluses and community pressure. And here's the kicker, this drummer probably doesn't even think of himself as a timekeeper. That's just how things are. You live in the rhythm. You learn it young by ear, the same way a baby today learns the sound of a microwave ding or a car alarm wailing 3 blocks away. Think about it, every society needs to coordinate. Someone has to say, let's all be in the same place at the same time to do the thing. Some cultures picked sundials, others invented bells or church towers. The Yoruba. They took rhythm and made it speak. Of course, this system isn't chaos with drumsticks. It's a carefully managed routine. Drums are most active during transitions, dawn, noon, dusk, major rituals, and emergencies. Each moment has its signature beat. The morning rhythm you're hearing now is mellow, drawn out like a stretching cat. It tells people, okay, sleepyheads, time to shake the cobwebs. But just wait around midday, the tone will sharpen. You'll hear faster rhythms, tighter rolls. That means work is at its peak. Tools, clinking pestles, pounding tradespeople shouting over goods. Even time gets more intense around noon. Here's a neat mainstream tidbit. Anthropologists have confirmed that Yoruba towns often had designated drummer time zones. That is, certain parts of the village heard different versions of the drum message depending on who lived there and what they were expected to do. Market square beats emphasized opening times. Shrineside beats leaned into ritual cues. It's like personalized notifications, 18th century style. But the system wasn't perfect. Picture this, someone gets the beat wrong. They're hungover or their cousin taught them a rhythm with slightly different phrasing. Suddenly, two families show up at the stream expecting different ceremonies. Whoops. An awkward silence, then a scramble to correct it. The elders frown. The drummers huddle, murmuring with shame. You just witnessed what you might call a time misfire. In modern terms, that's like receiving a text that says dinner 6:30 when it's really brunch at 10, but with higher spiritual consequences. Now let's talk about tonal structure. If the idea of a drum speaking still baffles you, imagine this, you're humming a tune. The melody rises and falls. Now imagine every word you speak has a built-in melody too. That's Yoruba for you. So when the drum imitates speech, it's not random noise, it's replaying those ups and downs like musical Morse code, but it doesn't play every word, no time for that. It plays highlights, key syllables. Sometimes it just plays the proverb associated with what's happening and everyone fills in the blanks. It's like a trailer instead of the whole movie. One classic phrase that shows up in drum language is time walks gently, but it crushes those who sleep. A gentle reminder that even in this relaxed society, slacking off could mean missing your moment. Harsh, maybe, but poetic. The drum doesn't yell at you, it persuades. Now here's where things get spicy. Some drums weren't just telling time, they were telling truths. That's right, public opinion was sometimes expressed rhythmically. A long, winding phrase played at just the right hour might be a subtle drag on a neighbor who owes debts, or a coded message reminding the chief that the people remember his broken promises. Nothing says passive-aggressive like a rhythmic proverb echoing across town square at 9:15 a.m. On the fringe side, some scholars even suggest that master drummers were considered semi-mystical figures able to see the right rhythm based on unseen energies in the village. It sounds woo-woo, but think about it. If your entire society runs on beat-based communication, then someone with control over that rhythm has real power. Spiritual, political, and even personal power. A drummer might not be elected, but he could ruin your wedding by just playing a certain beat 10 minutes early. Terrifying. There's another layer. Children didn't just learn to interpret drums, they were assigned rhythm duties and apprenticeship. By the time a boy was 12, he might know how to play 5 rhythms perfectly and interpret 30 more. Girls, too, learned the codes, though they were more often the interpreters, dancers, or singers who accompanied the messages. Each generation absorbed time not through numbers, but through stories wrapped in percussion. At this point, you might wonder, how did people agree on time? Good question. Because this isn't a world of seconds and GPS satellites, it's a world of consensus reality. If the drummer says it's morning and the birds are chirping and the elders are nodding, then it's morning, and the sun might say 7:15, but nobody cares. The beat says it's harvest hour, and that's what matters. This created a fascinating kind of flexibility. Let's say there's a flood and a ceremony needs to move forward by half a day. No printed invites, no digital alerts, just a new rhythm announced, and suddenly everyone's internal clocks shift. It's not disorientation, it's adaptation, like a jazz band changing tempo in real time. And yet, despite all this fluidity, life flowed with remarkable precision. Children were born to certain rhythms, marriages timed by drums. Even punishments, yes, corporal ones, were sometimes announced and executed on the beat. You could live an entire life from swaddling cloth to burial mat guided by percussion. Still not convinced it worked. Here's a historical kicker. Colonial administrators trying to impose clock time on Yoruba communities were often out-organized. Their neatly scheduled meetings would be completely deserted until the local drummer played the rhythm for town gathering. Then boom, within 15 minutes, 100 people showed up ready to negotiate. Bureaucracy, zero rhythm won. So as you stand now near the edge of the farm path, hearing that late morning beat, urging the workers toward the fields, remember this. In this world, time isn't owned. It's shared, heard, felt, lived, and if you're late, maybe you just weren't listening close enough. You're halfway down a winding dirt path now, the sun bouncing lazily off the bright green leaves of cassava plants. The village has fully awakened, not with blaring alarms or calendar pings, but with the smooth transitions of rhythm. Everywhere you turn, the talking drums still murmur softly from corners and courtyards, each beat like a breath from the soul of the community. And you're starting to notice something strange. Time doesn't pass here. It arrives on cue, in rhythm. This part of the day is all about routine. People are moving in sync, not just with each other, but with the drummers. Someone pulls water from the well in 3 scoops to match the drum's triple stroke. A child chasing a goat around a cooking fire mimics the call and response rhythm in his laughter. And you realize your body started to adjust too. You're walking to the beat now. Even your yawns are suspiciously on tempo. There's a phrase in Yoruba, akoko ki sawari. Time does not search for you. You must be ready for it. That's exactly how things feel. The rhythm announces, and it's your job to show up. It's like jazz improvisation with spiritual consequences. But wait, what exactly are these routines being coordinated? You find yourself drawn toward a small gathering at the edge of a farm clearing. People are assembling for what looks like a planting ceremony. And there it is again, a new beat. This one is tighter, more urgent, like a reminder. You watch a drummer slap out a phrase that loosely translates to gather quickly. The yam waits not for the lazy. Subtle shade, possibly. Motivational, definitely. Here's where things get intricate. Daily life is chopped into loose time blocks, each signaled by its own beat pattern. Unlike Western hours and minutes, Yoruba time revolves around natural events and community needs. The day has major rhythmic pillars: dawn work-rise, mid-meal heat, peak cooling shadow dusk, call night hush. Within each of these activities are linked to specific cadences. Let's break it down. Work-rise beat, post-sunrise. Usually fast with low tones, nudging people toward the fields or market. Mid-meal beat when food is ready, softer pulsing like a simmering pot. It tells you to drop your hoe and fetch your bowl. Cooling shadow beat late afternoon. Slow, dreamy permission to begin wrapping up. Dusk call beat, a staccato flare like the chirp of cicadas. Lock up your goats, kids inside. Elders prepare for twilight council. You don't wear time on your wrist, you carry it in your ears. One mainstream historical fact that's been verified: many Yoruba towns developed systems where multiple drummers, each stationed in a different quadrant of the village, played staggered versions of the same rhythm. This created a kind of spatial orientation to time. If you were closer to the shrine, you heard one phrase emphasized. Near the market, another. It wasn't just about what time it was, but what that time meant for you specifically. Imagine if your smartphone could tailor your notifications based on your role and location. That's what these rhythms did centuries ago. But here's a lovely little fringe detail that scholars still argue about. Some believe drummers had unique time signatures that they embedded in their beats like personalized tags. So when a certain beat came from that drummer, you'd know who was speaking and possibly what mood they were in. Yes, your entire sense of punctuality might hinge on knowing Uncle Ade's signature snare flourish. Meanwhile, there's another twist. Rhythm didn't just coordinate tasks, it reinforced values. Let's say the cooling shadow beat plays too early one day. People won't just think, oh, we're done working. They'll interpret it as a cosmic hint. Maybe the ancestors want rest today. Or maybe rain is coming. Time wasn't just social, it was metaphysical. When drums spoke, they carried not only practical cues, but spiritual resonance. Think about the difference in most modern contexts. Time is enforced. A buzzer goes off. A siren wails. A clock blinks angrily. You obey because you must. Here, the drum invites, suggests, coaxes. It doesn't scold, it seduces. That's a whole mood shift. It's not "you're late, it's come join us in the flow." Even procrastination becomes poetic. And yet you might wonder, what if someone didn't hear the drum? Well, that's a valid concern, especially if you're out in the forest or asleep in a far hut. That's why the drumming system had built-in redundancy. Every major cue was followed by a carrier rhythm, a simpler, louder beat that repeated the essence of the message. It's like a radio jingle for time. The message might have complexity, but the rhythm ensured nobody missed the memo. But even that wasn't always enough. Which brings us to one of the more curious traditions, time runners. These were usually young boys trained to listen to the drum's message and then sprint to outlying areas, repeating the rhythm verbally or on handheld drums. Basically, they were the original push notifications, small, sweaty, and slightly annoyed at always being sent to the farthest farm first. Back to you now. You've wandered closer to a woman pounding yam under a shade tree. Her mortar strikes match a faint beat pulsing from the next compound. She's not even thinking about it, but she's on time. Her rhythm aligns with the day's flow. There's no spoken scheduling, no daily planner, just muscle memory and ambient percussion. If your life had a soundtrack, this would be it, and the joke of it all. Some of these drummers were illiterate in the traditional sense, but absolute savants in acoustic communication. They could memorize dozens of beat phrases, modulate tone with micro adjustments, and keep tempo through distractions that would shatter a metronome. Imagine trying to write an essay while people scream, dance, and argue all around you, and still nail the exact proverb beat to tell the fishmongers it's time to start packing up. That's drummer life. Of course, not all rhythms were shared publicly. Some were private, a kind of sacred calendar passed down through lineage. There were specific beats used only for ancestral invocation or for moments of crisis like drought or epidemic. Those rhythms were sparse, eerie. Hearing them would send a shiver up your spine. You'd drop whatever you were doing, even mid-sneeze, and rush to find out what happened. By now, the day is drifting into its mid-phase. The work beat slows. People pause under trees. You hear a new rhythm starting. It's the lunch rhythm, smooth and rich like palm oil. Women serve fufu on banana leaves. Elders lean into sleepy conversations about the last rainy season. Kids try to copy drum patterns with sticks and stones, playing their way into fluency. And you sit, chew slowly, and let the rhythm carry you. No rush at all. You've barely finished licking the palm oil from your fingers when another rhythm glides through the air light as the drifting scent of roasting plantain. It doesn't interrupt, it caresses. This one is not about urgency. It's about realignment. You feel it before you understand it. A kind of soft reset, like a whispered suggestion. Time to begin again. This is the afternoon recalibration rhythm, and if you're thinking that sounds like something your therapist might recommend, you're not far off. In Yoruba society, this rhythm marks the gentle turning point of the day, the moment when work starts winding down, when plans begin shifting toward reflection, community, and preparation for dusk. You don't just work until you're tired. You work until the rhythm changes. You're lying under a tree now, belly full, eyelids heavy when someone nudges your shoulder. A boy, maybe 12, carrying a smaller tension drum slung over one shoulder. He says nothing, just raises his eyebrows and nods toward a nearby path. You follow him because, well, it's not like you have a better idea, and frankly, the drum's message has already taken root in your bones. The path curves gently into a cluster of tall, sunlit palms. There in a clearing sits a low wooden bench ringed by elders. You recognize some of them from earlier in the market square. They're not talking, just listening. In the center, a senior drummer plays not loudly, but deliberately carefully, like every beat is a word he's choosing with deep precision. He's delivering what you might call the afternoon update. In modern terms, it's like tuning into NPR after lunch to get a feel for what's happening. The drummer's rhythm is loose but purposeful, full of looping phrases and subtle pauses. It's as if he's reporting the vibes, not just the facts. There's a pattern in there about the health of a sick elder, another about a successful palm wine harvest. Then a cheeky flourish you'd swear it means someone's goats got loose again. Laughter bubbles up from the crowd. The goat jokes never get old. And here's a mainstream fact: in many Yoruba communities, these afternoon sessions weren't just entertainment, they were information hubs, like town criers with drumsticks, because many people were working far from home or inside or in fields where they couldn't hear the earlier rhythms. Clearly, the afternoon segment gave everyone a second chance to sync up. It reinforced the communal calendar. Missed the funeral update this morning, you'll catch it now. Didn't hear the market time adjustment, the drums got your back. But this leads us to a fascinating historical puzzle: how much of this was structured. Historians still argue whether Yoruba drum-based timekeeping followed a strict system or if it relied more on community consensus and intuition. Some scholars propose the idea of a proto-calendar encoded in rhythms passed down orally through generations. Others say it was closer to jazz, a flexible, improvisational structure with shared cues. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between, like so many human systems, planned but pliable. Either way, you start to understand something important: Yoruba time isn't a line, it's a spiral. It loops and returns, not just each day, but seasonally, ritually. Events are repeated in cycles. The same rhythms that tell you to plant in spring will return next year to say the same thing, only deeper, layered with memories, past sorrows, new meanings. It's not deja vu. It's rhythm re-entering your life, like an old friend saying, "You again, let's do this." But here's where it gets delightfully weird. Some anthropologists claim that drummers sometimes embedded specific time cycles into their performances patterns that subtly hinted at the lunar phase, or at upcoming festivals, or even at fertility cycles. Imagine a Google Calendar with recurring events that also predicts your mood swings. That's the level of psychic multitasking we're talking about. One fringe detail that's too charming not to mention: there's a legend that certain drummers could signal romantic messages by shifting time-based rhythms to match a lover's secret nickname or a shared proverb. So yes, someone could literally flirt by beat. "Hey, sweet yam, meet me at dusk," played out through rhythmic code. We've been DMing through signals far longer than we think. Back to the present. The senior drummer finishes and the elders nod in that universal language of "cool, cool, we get it." The rhythm tapers off with a flourish. You expect everyone to clap. They don't. They just feel it, like the air has shifted. You walk back down the path more alert than before, because now the day has begun its descent. The beat said so. You notice subtle changes: kids return from water runs. Goats start meandering back to their pens. The cooking fires get restoked, and you hear it again: the rhythm changes. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. You feel it in your ankles. This new pattern, it's the shadow stretch rhythm. That time of day when trees cast long silhouettes and the golden hour glow kisses everything. People begin wrapping up field work, turning toward home. Conversations get slower. You can almost hear the land sighing, and even in this gentle winding down, time is still measured in musical cues. For instance, if the beat has a double tap at the end, it means there's an evening ceremony coming. If it's a simple rolling cadence, the night will be ordinary. If it ends with a low, slow double drum pause, that's your cue to expect rain. Yes, the drum is also a weather app. But what about when things go wrong? Say a drummer falls ill or an apprentice messes up a sacred rhythm. That's when a town might go into what's called a silent drift, a period where time isn't being actively marked. It's not chaos, but it's unnerving. You live by rhythm, so silence isn't neutral, it's loaded. It means you're outside the pattern, floating. People get anxious, chores are missed, arguments break out. Someone eventually begs the drummers to resume, even if they just play the rhythm for "all is calm." And when that beat returns, relief floods through the village like a breeze. Time has restarted. Your heartbeat falls back in line. The sun is nearly touching the horizon now. You return to your host's compound, watching as fires are lit and children gather near their mothers. Someone's drumming again, not loud, not fancy, just enough. You know what it means. It's the prepare for dusk beat, and it's perfect. The rhythm says, finish cooking. Wash your hands. Say your evening greetings. Get ready to huddle around the stories, the laughter, the rituals. Get ready to pass into another mode of time, the night rhythm slow and layered like deep sleep. And you smile because you know that you're not just a visitor anymore. You're part of the pattern now. Your body has learned the schedule. Your spirit has bent toward the beat. No alarms, no ticking, just rhythm and breath and story. The last amber sliver of sunlight slides beneath the forest canopy, and as shadows spill like ink across the village floor, a hush begins to settle. But not silence, never silence. Instead, a new rhythm stirs in the air, so soft it's almost mistaken for the rustling of leaves. You pause. That's not wind. That's the drum again. Lower now, slower. It's whispering the transition into dusk. This is the evening convergence rhythm, and it's less about action and more about mood. The beat invites, not commands, everyone to shift into a different mode of time. You're no longer doing, you're being. It's the difference between planning a meal and savoring the last bite of stew, between speaking and listening, between presence and presence with reverence. You notice that even the goats seem to slow their chewing. Children return home no longer yelping and chasing each other, but quietly watching their parents finish evening chores. A grandmother sprinkles water in a circle around her doorstep, murmuring to herself. And above it all, the drum keeps its tempo. This beat is less complex, less talkative. It doesn't need to say much. Just, it is now the time. You sit near a cooking fire with a young woman weaving a basket. She doesn't look up from her work, but says softly, "The drums are gentle tonight." You nod, though part of you wonders how you ever lived without these cues. You didn't realize how much modern timekeeping yells until you experienced one that whispers. Let's talk about the drummers again, the people behind this whole operation. Earlier, you met one or two, but now you're beginning to grasp their true role in Yoruba society. These aren't just musicians, they're human timekeepers, anchors of communal memory, living, breathing notification systems. Their skill isn't just in rhythm, it's in encoding meaning, tempo, tone, cultural nuance, even gossip into the beat. Each drummer undergoes years of training not just in technique, but in cultural fluency. They memorize lineages, rituals, seasonal cues, and the social etiquette embedded in certain rhythms. They know which beats should never be played during funerals, which pauses are considered sacred, which phrase means gather in mourning, and which means we celebrate despite our loss. Being a drummer is a job, yes, but it's also an inheritance, a responsibility, and in many cases, a spiritual calling. You may be surprised to learn that historically many villages had designated master drummers, each assigned to specific functions: public coordination, religious rites, royal court rhythms, and even conflict resolution. One mainstream account tells of a drummer in 19th century Abeokuta who diffused a land dispute between two clans simply by weaving both their praise names into a reconciliation rhythm played at dusk. No words, just rhythm and peace. Still, not everything about being a human clock is idyllic. Some drummers were overworked, especially during ceremonial seasons when festivals, funerals, and rites of passage piled into the calendar like an overzealous aunt planning back-to-back family dinners. Imagine being expected to drum for 5 events in one day while fasting in the heat, and expected not to mix up the initiation beat with the divorce negotiation rhythm. Talk about high-stakes percussion. Then there's the issue of drummer politics, because yes, of course there's drama. You don't think the keepers of social timing would escape petty rivalries, do you? Some apprentice drummers would deliberately mimic their masters, too well earning the crowd's favor and provoking jealousy. Others were accused of inserting subtextual insults into beat patterns. Picture this: you're drumming out the arrival of dignitaries' rhythm, and you sneak in a flourish that implies one guest's lineage is slightly questionable. The village erupts in laughter. The guest never returns. That's a whole drum-bass scandal. On the fringe of historical certainty, there's a story passed down in Oyo about a drummer so skilled he could mask one rhythm inside another. Supposedly during colonial negotiations, he played the submission rhythm on the surface, but layered the resistance rhythm beneath it in syncopation. Historians still argue whether this counts as political defiance or just advanced shade. Either way it worked, the British officer left baffled. The village celebrated that night with extra palm wine. Now you might be wondering, how were drummers trained to such precision? Training usually began in childhood, often within a family line. Young boys and occasionally girls, despite colonial-era suppression of female drummers, started with simple call and response patterns. As they advanced, they were expected to memorize complex proverbs, ancestral chants, and most critically, the tonal inflection system of Yoruba speech. Remember, this isn't drumming for fun. This is talking through rhythm. If your tone is off, your message is nonsense, or worse, offensive. There's a famous training exercise where apprentices are blindfolded and told to listen for the lie. The master drummer plays a sequence and one beat will be off tone or false in meaning. Spotting that mistake isn't just about ear training, it's cultural decoding. It means you understand not just the sound, but the truth embedded in rhythm. It's like training an actor to deliver Shakespeare by heartbeat. And then, of course, comes the ultimate test time recall. A master drummer plays the rhythm for a specific event from 10 years ago. The apprentice must name the event, the date, the occasion, and replicate the pattern. If they hesitate, they fail. If they improvise, they fail harder. Only those with total recall, intuitive timing, and impeccable tonal control advance to the next level. Tonight, sitting around this fire, you realize you're in the presence of one such master. The old man from earlier is back his drum, now resting against his knee. He doesn't play, not yet. Instead, he listens to the other drummers, young ones, now testing their rhythm against his memory. He nods occasionally, shakes his head at one, says nothing, just taps a toe in disapproval, and then he raises his hand. The village falls quiet, like someone hit pause on the whole forest. He plays. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it is devastatingly precise. The rhythm lands like footsteps you forgot you knew. Your skin tightens, your breath slows. This isn't a rhythm for a chore or a meal or a message. This is the rhythm of arrival. A sacred beat that means the spirits are here. Show respect. No one moves. Even the babies stop babbling. After 3 perfect minutes, he stops. And that's it. Time again has shifted. Not in hours, but in meaning. You don't need to know the clock. You just know. The rhythm told you. Later, as night deepens and the stars begin to spark like flint in the sky, you lie back on your mat. The last rhythm of the day plays somewhere far off, slow-rounded, soft enough to be mistaken for your own heartbeat. The night hush rhythm. It doesn't say, go to sleep. It says, you are safe now. The day is complete. Rest. And as your eyes close, you realize something truly beautiful. The world doesn't need to measure time with cold machines. It can whisper it to you in rhythm. And if you learn to listen closely, you'll never be lost again. The night holds you like a warm, rhythmic cradle. There's no ticking, no digital glow, only a sky smeared with stars, and the final residue of the day's last beat still echoing softly in your chest. You wake briefly in the dark and listen. The drums are silent now. Or are they? You strain your ears. There it is, a tiny, delicate cadence far off like raindrops falling on a calabash. But this beat isn't for the public. It's private, almost sacred. You're not meant to hear it. And yet, here you are awake at the exact moment when time itself becomes ritual. This is the pre-dawn invocation rhythm, and it's played only by select drummers, those charged not with waking the village, but with waking the gods. You sit up quietly, your blanket slipping to the side, and tiptoe toward the sound. The path is damp with dew, and the only light is moonlight reflecting off the bark of the Iroko trees. The rhythm grows clearer, not louder, just more confident. It doesn't need to rush. Time hasn't returned yet. This beat is the threshold between worlds. As you reach the edge of a grove, you see them, a group of white-robed figures encircling a low fire. In their center, a single drummer plays slowly, deliberately alternating between light strokes and sudden rests. These aren't pauses for effect. These are gaps, holy silences in which the gods are invited to enter. Welcome to the realm where drums do more than mark time. They summon it. You're witnessing a ritual that predates every clock you've ever owned. It belongs to the spiritual dimension of Yoruba time, and understanding that time is not just a measurement of when things happen, but a portal through which forces divine, ancestral, and cosmic move. And here's a crucial mainstream truth: the Yoruba did not view time as a single layer. It was multi-dimensional. There's physical time, sunrise, planting, season, market day. Then there's ritual time, which does not follow the clock, but the mood of the universe, the alignment of spiritual forces, and the consent of the ancestors. This pre-dawn rhythm, it's setting the stage for the spiritual work of the day. The gods don't follow a 24-hour cycle. They come when called if the rhythm is correct. Not too early, never too late. You watch as the drumming shifts into a pattern that mimics a greeting chant. One of the elders joins in, singing softly in Yoruba, Ani lukbon oho lo anro. Today becomes wise, the day ripens. A poetic reminder that time isn't just passing, it's maturing. Every moment is a fruit, and the drum is there to help you taste it at its peak. There's a scholarly debate about whether these ritual drumming patterns were standardized or improvised by the priest drummers. Some anthropologists argue that the most powerful rhythms were handed down note for note, guarded like secrets. Others believe that true masters were expected to improvise according to the mood of the moment, channeling divine inspiration through their sticks and skin. Whatever the case, you now understand the talking drum wasn't just a timekeeper, it was a translator between realms, between body and spirit, between human and divine, between now and then. One particularly quirky tradition springs to mind. In some Yoruba towns, it was believed that if the pre-dawn rhythm was played too soon before the correct moment, the sun would rise confused and chickens would lay eggs without yolks. That's not a metaphor. People would genuinely check the eggs the next day to see if the rhythm had been premature. If there were too many white eggs, the drummer would be summoned for questioning. Talk about pressure. Back at the fire, you see another elder take up a smaller drum, joining in. This isn't performance, it's collaboration. The rhythms begin to overlap, weaving into each other like voices in prayer. You hear echoes of yesterday's beats, foreshadowings of today's. The future is being remembered, not predicted. Time in this sense is circular, but not static. It's recursive, like a melody that returns in variations. In Yoruba cosmology, certain events must be repeated to retain their power. A naming ceremony isn't finished until its anniversary is acknowledged in rhythm. A harvest isn't truly blessed unless last year's beat is replayed slightly altered to honor the past and renew the present. And so the rhythm you're hearing now, it may have been first played a century ago, or longer. Every beat is a ritual echo, a pulse older than memory. You're not just listening, you're remembering alongside them. Eventually the fire dims and the drummers slow their pace. The elders begin to sing again, this time a farewell verse, Oju orunti mo ojo ni bo. The face of the sky brightens, the day arrives. And just like that, the rhythm shifts again, no longer divine but social. The sacred beats fade, replaced by a more grounded cadence. It's time for the rest of the village to wake. But you've seen the backstage of time. You've glimpsed the rhythm that happens before the rooster crows. You slip back to your mat in the compound just as the morning drum begins its public message. This one is familiar rise, stretch, feed your goats, greet your neighbors. It's like clockwork, except beautiful. And here's something wild to consider. Every modern clock you've ever owned is trying poorly to do what these drummers mastered long ago. They're trying to translate meaning into rhythm. A buzzer goes off to tell you to wake. A notification pings to say you're late. But those are sterile signals stripped of context. The Yoruba talking drum says your child needs you now, or the harvest is ready, or the world is waking. Join us. It's not a countdown. It's a call to presence. As the morning light floods in, you realize this system doesn't just keep people on schedule, it shapes their very experience of being alive. Time is not a pressure, it's a pulse. You don't chase it, you listen for it, you move with it. And in doing so, you stay woven into the community, the cosmos, and the ancestors who drummed long before you. And just when you think you fully grasped it, a new idea creeps in, one that sends a shiver down your spine. If drummers can summon gods, remember the past, and forecast the moment, can they also manipulate time? Historians still argue about this. Some claim there were temporal rhythms used only by diviners' patterns said to delay certain fates or accelerate others. A funeral rhythm that keeps a dying man alive for one more hour. A birth rhythm that convinces a reluctant child to be born at sunset, not sunrise. It sounds mystical, but after what you've seen tonight, is it really so far-fetched? So you lie back again, heartbeat sinking to a rhythm you didn't even know you were waiting for. And for a moment, just one, you feel timeless. You're not in the past or the present or the future, you're in rhythm. Your breath slows as the village wakes, not with chaos, not with panic, but with rhythm. You no longer notice the drum as an intrusion. It's not noise anymore, it's texture, like the warmth of the sun or the sound of your own breathing. You stretch your muscles, moving in slow harmony with a rhythm that feels oddly familiar, even though you've never heard this one before. This is the early work beat, a signature cadence that ushers in not just motion, but meaning. In a world without seconds or hours, the Yoruba people measured their day with recurring rhythm cycles, let's call them metronomic clusters. They weren't trying to chop time into 24 identical slices. They were tuning it like an instrument. Tension release, pause, repeat. You don't manage the minutes, you dance through them. Today's rhythm is composed of 8 beat loops, a full cluster. That may not sound like much to your phone's stopwatch, but in this society, each loop corresponds to a phase of activity: wake, greet, gather, eat, work, cool, rest, and reflect. This rhythm set isn't arbitrary, it's organic, echoing not just human tasks, but the behavior of animals, the motion of light, and the turning of the sky. Historians refer to these time clusters as chronorhythms, a fancy term that essentially means patterns that organize life without using clocks. Instead of following fixed hours, the Yoruba follow energetic tides. Each cluster responds to what the earth is doing, what the body feels, and what the ancestors expect. It's not just 9 o'clock. It's the hour when leaves speak in shadow. You wander through the compound as the work beat rolls on. A woman lifts her baby onto her back, her footsteps landing precisely with the drummer's low strokes. A group of boys gather tools and begin heading toward the cassava fields. They're laughing, but even their laughter seems to rise and fall with the tempo. No one says, "Let's go." They just go. The rhythm already decided. You reach the edge of the village where the farmland begins. The drummer's beat softens, trailing off as people get farther away. But still they carry it with them. You hear it in how they speak to each other in bursts and pauses, in the repetition of tasks. Ho, lift, toss. Ho, lift, toss. A symphony of labor in D minor. One particularly observant anthropologist once noted that in Yoruba villages, the rhythms of daily labor matched not only the drum, but also the pattern of prayer and proverb. That is, time itself wasn't just musical, it was linguistic. You didn't just dig yams. You dug yams with the blessing of Shango, the thunder god. And if your hoe stroke got out of sync, a neighboring farmer might say time frowns at the impatient. A proverb in rhythm, a correction without insult. Now, here's something worth knowing. This kind of temporal structuring was so widespread that people could predict the progress of the day simply by listening to the ambient sound of the village. If you heard only children singing too early to eat, if you heard pounding foo-foo midday, if you heard the slow call of a distant flute, time to return. Even without the drum actively beating its patterns echoed in everything else. Like a bass line you hum without realizing. Of course it wasn't always so smooth. Let's not romanticize it too much. Sometimes the rhythm was off. A drummer fell ill. A rainstorm disrupted the beat. Or a neighboring village's drum carried a conflicting message. Suddenly, things felt strange. You'd hear someone mutter, "The hour limps today." That meant the rhythm was wrong and people felt it. Children got moody, arguments flared, goats escaped. One quirky tidbit, some families kept personal gongs or calabash shakers in case the public rhythm went off track. These weren't full drums, just small homemade instruments used to reinforce the expected beat privately. Kind of like a backup clock, but vibey. If the main drummer missed the palm oil hour, Auntie Aid might quietly tap her shaker behind her hut and start the process anyway. Everyone would smell the stew and realize, she's right. That's the hour now. One woman, one shaker, one temporal correction, and that's the beauty of it. Yoruba time wasn't top-down, it was collective. The drum set the tone, yes, but the people could negotiate its meaning. There was space to breathe inside the beat, and when disagreement happened, it wasn't a crisis. It was an invitation to tune in closer. Now let's explore one of the most brilliant things about the Yoruba way of measuring time. It's inherently seasonal. While modern time gives you the same 12 months year after year, Yoruba rhythm cycle shifts slightly depending on the weather, harvest, and mood of the land. What that means is the rhythm for early work in planting season isn't exactly the same as early work in harmattan season. The bass pulse may stay the same, but the texture changes, just like how jazz standards sound different depending on who's playing. That's where the idea of ritual time drift comes in. This is a scholarly term used to describe how rhythms slowly evolve across months to reflect natural changes. It's subtle, but effective. Like a clock that runs slower in the heat and faster in the cold on purpose. And here's a delicious debate for your inner nerd. Some researchers argue that the Yoruba didn't just adapt rhythm seasonally, they encoded astronomical knowledge in the beat itself. Certain drummers were said to have patterns reserved for solstices, equinoxes, and lunar transitions. It's not astrology exactly, but it's close. The idea is that if you listen closely enough, the drum doesn't just tell you what time it is, it tells you what kind of time it is. A good time, a hungry time, a fertile time, a time to beware. That's next level calendaring. Now picture this, it's mid-morning, the sun is high but not yet scorching. You hear a crisp, high-pitched beat echo from the central drum post. It's shorter than usual, almost impatient. People pause in the fields. A few turn toward the sound, shading their eyes. Someone mutters, "Sale Oja." Is it market announcement time? The drummer plays it again this time with a little more flourish. Yes, that's the cluster for early market motion. Within minutes, you see movement. A woman wipes her hands on her wrapper, scoops up her wares, and starts toward the village. A boy pulls a wheelbarrow from the shade. No one panics, no one rushes. But everything shifts. It's like watching a river that suddenly changes course. Smooth, inevitable. And just as the village absorbs this new tempo, a different rhythm starts to rise on the opposite edge of the horizon, fainter but faster. A neighboring village is drumming too. Their market beat is similar, but with a higher tone signature. It means their stalls will open sooner. Competition in rhythm form. People notice. Some pick up the pace. The drummer back in your village shifts his beat in response, adjusting the tempo by a hair. This is what scholars call a drum dialogue, where multiple villages negotiate timing across distance using rhythm alone. Think about that. No emails, no calls, no committee meetings, just tactical beats across landscapes. And the result's miraculous. 2 villages agree on a joint market hour without ever speaking a word. You sit back stunned. In a world where digital calendars crash and people still show up late to Zoom, calls the idea that a forest full of small communities could orchestrate their entire daily schedule through rhythm seems magical. But it wasn't magic, it was mastery. Mastery of attention, mastery of tone, mastery of collective timekeeping without a single watch. And you've started checking your own pulse against the beat just to see if you're syncing. You are. The air thickens slightly as noon creeps closer, and with it comes a subtle restlessness. Goats bleat louder. Children's play grows a bit more chaotic, and even the wind seems to sway differently. You glance toward the central drum stand, half expecting another rhythm to begin. And right on cue, it does not a bold call to action, but a shifty, curious beat that rises and falls like someone knocking politely on different doors. This is the market syncopation rhythm, and it's your portal into one of the most debated mysteries in Yoruba timekeeping, the ancient Yoruba market week. Some say it ran on a 4-day cycle. Others insist it followed a 5-day rhythm. Still, others believe it was tied to lunar observations or deity demands rather than calendar math. Historians still argue whether the Yoruba operated on a consistent market week across regions, or if each town danced to its own economic beat. What we do know is this markets were not random. They were rhythmic, pulsed into existence by the beat of the drum, the murmur of trade gods, and the scent of fermented locust beans drifting across footpaths. You follow a stream of women and children toward the market square, guided by the beat now transitioning into something sharper, higher pitched, and more percussive. It says arrive, unload, display. And like magic baskets flip open, bolts of dyed cloth unfurl, spices bloom into the air. The entire square rearranges itself in minutes, coordinated not by clocks but by patterned momentum. Now here's where things get deliciously complex. In some towns there were 4 market days, each linked to a deity and a domain. Ochi Oho Orunmila. Orunmila's day, divination and spiritual tools. Oho Esu Eshu's day, crossroads, goods, charms, and trade items. Oho Obatala. Obatala's day, white cloth, salt, cool foods. Oho Sango. Shango's day, fire spices, iron tools, energy goods. If you showed up with the wrong items on the wrong day, your sales would flop. Not because of superstition, well, maybe a little, but because the rhythm hadn't called your type of commerce forward. It would be like trying to sell wool coats at a summer beach party. The community simply wasn't in sync with your product, but in other regions, a 5-day cycle dominated, loosely mapped to phases of the moon, tied less to gods and more to inter-village exchange rhythms. One village's market would beat on day 1, the next on day 2, and so on, each slotting into a rotational sequence like musical chairs, only with cassava and smoked fish. What does this mean for you? Well, as you move through the market, you begin to notice that even the way people haggle is rhythmic. You hear a seller slap her thigh in time with a chant, Eleda'a ko ni je ki antan. The creator won't let me lie. She's singing her price, and the buyer responds with a beatbox-style rebuttal using a hand fan as percussion. It's not a fight. It's a negotiation performance. Commerce Yoruba style is basically theater with yam. Drummers, meanwhile, take their positions on elevated platforms around the square. These aren't just entertainers, they're regulators. Their beats shift, depending on market density, weather, or even disputes. If a fight breaks out, the drum changes immediately sharp and piercing. Vendors pause, buyers freeze, peacekeepers arrive. Within moments, the beat returns to its normal bounce, harmony restored by rhythm. And yes, there's a gossip rhythm too. Don't act surprised. Every community has its busybodies. Yoruba villages just made theirs melodic. The gossip beat is playful, cheeky, with triplets that mimic teasing speech. If you hear it looped 3 times, that's code for guess who's pregnant, and it's not her husband. Some sellers pretend not to listen. Others giggle behind their baskets. Here's a mainstream fact to ground all this joy. British colonial officials in the early 20th century, attempted to enforce fixed market schedules using printed calendars and law codes. It failed miserably. Traders ignored the paper and waited for the market beat instead. One administrator's journal entry reads, "The people gather only when the drum speaks." A better slogan for any society, really. But what happens when the rhythm doesn't match the mood? That's where we get to the notion of discordant days. Sometimes the drum would announce market time and yet people hesitated. Maybe a respected elder had passed or the sky held the wrong color at dawn. Even if the rhythm said go, the feeling said no. In such cases, elders might meet and decide to suspend rhythm. A new beat would play the empty circle cadence. It meant we skip the day, begin again tomorrow. This flexibility wasn't chaotic, it was intentional. Time in Yoruba thought was alive. It could be listened to, adjusted, respected, not enforced by mechanical regularity. Imagine your office announcing, "Hey, we're canceling today's schedule because the energy's off. Try again tomorrow." That's Yoruba time management in action. You sit down under a shade canopy next to a woman selling cola nuts. She hums along with the beat, an old tune you realize is stitched into the current rhythm. It's an ancestral reference, a kind of musical inside joke. You ask her what it means. She smiles and says, "It means the yam remembers the soil it grew from." A proverb, a warning, a callback, a history lesson in 4 beats. One fringe theory you overhear from a passing herbalist, some market beats are encrypted with lunar energy. According to him, master drummers could sense moon phases not by looking up, but by feeling how the wood of the drum responded that morning. A tight skin meant a waxing moon. A loose one meant a wane. He could be messing with you, or he could be the moon whisperer. In Yoruba cosmology, the line between mystic and prankster is always delightfully blurred. As midday ripens and the sun pushes harder on the village roofs, the market beat begins to shift. It's not fading exactly, it's transitioning. A series of descending notes ring out like a question asked softly. That's the cooling call, a rhythm that signals the slowing of trade. Not every vendor obeys immediately, but gradually baskets are covered, pots, lifted feet, shuffled back toward compounds. And here's a thing of beauty, no one has to say close the market, the drum says it, and people listen. People. There's a particular cadence reserved for those who linger the last seller's loop. It's a teasing, slightly rushed rhythm. Sellers who stay too long past it might get a visit from the local council. Not as punishment, but as a reminder. Time isn't just yours, it's ours. You stand now at the edge of the market square, watching the last few exchanges. The air smells of wood smoke and citrus. Children run between stalls, catching leftover pieces of dried mango. And through it all, the drum remains. Quieter now. A background heartbeat. You realize something important. The market isn't just a space, it's a temporal organism. Born in rhythm, lived in rhythm, ended in rhythm. You step away, your ears still full of beat, your thoughts still buzzing with proverbs. You don't check your watch, you don't need to. The rhythm has already told you. The market is done, the time has moved, and you're still in sync. You're walking back from the market, and though your hands are empty, your ears carry everything. The rhythm still echoes in your head, not because it's persistent, but because it's alive. As your footsteps press into the warm earth, the beats from earlier rearrange themselves in your mind. They don't just mark time, they tell stories. And that's when you realize some of the most important timekeeping in Yoruba life isn't tied to trade labor or routine. It's tied to ritual and celebration moments that shimmer on the edge of the mundane, where time shifts gears completely. You're heading toward the Grove of the Ancestors, a quiet wooded area just outside the village. There's a different beat now, one you haven't heard before. It doesn't demand attention. It pulls at it like a memory you forgot you had. Low, layered, hypnotic. This is the festival prelude rhythm, a signal that something larger than daily life is coming. Something cyclic, sacred, and perfectly timed to the movement of moon and mood. It announces, the sacred is near. As you reach the grove, you see preparations already underway. Women lay out dyed cloths in specific patterns. Children gather leaves and herbs. A line of drummers, 3 deep, sit in a crescent moon shape, facing an altar of stone and wood. They're not just marking minutes, they're summoning months, maybe even years. Because Yoruba festivals don't happen on a calendar page. They happen when the drum says the season is ripe. This is where you meet the concept of Orisa time, not measured in seconds or dates, but in cycles of worship and spiritual alignment. Each Orisa, divine force or deity, has their own beat ritual window and temporal personality. The Orisa Shango, Lord of Thunder and Justice, favors bright rhythmic patterns with sharp syncopation. His time is electric decisive. When his beat starts rolling, it means change is coming fast. Meanwhile, Obatala, deity of wisdom and purity, prefers slow, deliberate cadences with soft, echoing rests. When his rhythm plays, everything slows. People move gently. Even the goats seem to behave better. His time is clean, reflective. And what about Osun, the goddess of rivers, beauty, and love? Her time dances. Her drum beats flirt with silence, teasing the next note before it lands. If her rhythm starts in the village square, you'll soon see children skipping, old women smiling, and young couples finding excuses to stand just a little closer. Her time is sensual and unpredictable. Each festival rhythm is cosmological choreography. Not just sound, but signal. Not just marking when the celebration occurs, but how it should feel. You sit beneath a palm tree and watch as the first festival preparations begin. There's no rush. No clock ticking down, just layers of rhythm gently guiding the community from the practical into the spiritual. It's worth noting that some historians have tried and failed to pin these festivals onto Western calendar grids. They'd ask elders, when is the Shango festival? And get an answer like, after the second new moon, when the rivers thin and the yam vines begin to speak. Useful not to your Google Calendar, but to someone who listens perfectly precise. Because in Yoruba cosmology, time is ecological. It doesn't just move, it emerges. And when it's time for a festival, the signs are everywhere in the way. Leaves fall the way dreams feel, and yes, in the beat of the drum. You learn that festival time unfolds in phases, each announced by a rhythm that gets more complex and energetic. First, the invitation rhythm, subtle, introspective, asking the spirits to attend. Then the gathering rhythm, louder and more insistent, calling people to prepare. Then the arrival rhythm, a whirlwind of motion that tells the entire village, now, now, now. And here's a curious tidbit: some festivals occur not annually, but according to what the Yoruba call rhythmic omens. That means if a certain bird sings too early, or a specific kind of wind blows at night, the drummers might interpret it as a divine cue and begin the prelude rhythm weeks ahead of schedule. That's not rescheduling, that's listening. Some colonial officials tried to suppress these unscheduled festivals, branding them chaotic, but villagers ignored them, because the beat wasn't random, it was ancestral. And when the ancestors call, you don't argue, you answer with rhythm. As the afternoon deepens, you notice something else: the entire environment responds to festival rhythm. Vendors adjust their prices. Farmers leave certain crops unharvested to appease the spirits. Children are taught new dances in time with the beat. Even conflicts are paused. There's a proverb, Unti akoko obafi tobi ayefi onyo. What time does not allow the earth will not produce. Meaning, if the rhythm says pause, you pause. One festival, elder, a woman with beads cascading from her wrists, leans towards you and whispers, "Today we speak to the moon, but tomorrow the moon speaks back." She's not being poetic. She means that tonight's rhythms will summon dreams, omens, answers. In Yoruba thought, time is conversational. You speak, you wait, you listen. The drum is your voice. Sleep is the reply. A mainstream anthropological study once observed that Yoruba festivals often blur the boundary between time lived and time relived. That is, these aren't just annual events, they are re-performances of a divine story. When a Shango priest dances in rhythm, he's not just celebrating, he's reenacting, literally embodying a moment that happened and still happens again and again. Time as loop, not line. This is known as timeless time, the belief that sacred actions, when repeated with exact rhythm and care, create portals into myth. The ancestors don't remember a festival, they join it. They arrive with the beat. And yes, people have claimed to feel a sudden chill, a soft voice, a presence just behind them as the rhythm peaks. Maybe it's imagination, maybe not. The fringe theory. That master drummers aren't just musicians, but temporal custodians. That some rhythms literally bend the fabric of perceived time, slowing the heart, shortening breath, elongating memory. There are rumors of beats that make people weep, not from sadness, but from recognition. A rhythm that says, "You have been here before." As the sun tilts low, the drum changes again. Now comes the dusk rhythm, steady and low. Not for working, not for gathering, for preparing. Offerings are laid. White chalk is painted on foreheads. Children are gathered and told to hush. The beat is measured in heartbeats now, the rhythm of expectation. And you sit in that expectant hush, heart-synced eyes wide. You don't know what's coming next, but you feel it. Just behind the rhythm, just beneath your ribs. It's not just time for a festival, it's festival time, and that's a very different thing. The sun is slipping past the tops of the trees now, and shadows stretch long and deliberate across the packed earth ground. You're standing near the edge of the sacred grove, and all around you the air thickens, not with heat, but with anticipation. The rhythm has changed again. It's no longer calling people to the festival. It's calling something through the forest. You hear it faintly at first, a slow rolling pulse that skips every few beats. Then it returns heavier, deeper, like someone stomping in soft-soled shoes through leaves. It's not coming from the clearing. It's coming from far off through the trees. This is the echo rhythm, a specialized drum pattern used for long-distance messaging. You're not the only one celebrating today. Somewhere across the forest, another village is responding. And now you understand this isn't just a festival. It's part of a drum-linked network, a series of ritual pings and replies that ripple across Yoruba land like spiritual sonar. A ceremony might start here, continue over there, and conclude in a third village entirely. All coordinated by rhythm, all timed without clocks. You pause, trying to isolate the sound. Yes, there it is again. A distant duk-dun-dun-dun. Not a random echo, but a call. One village is saying, "We begin now." The other responds, "We hear you." Here's a verified historical fact that feels nearly impossible. Skilled Yoruba drummers could send messages across 5 to 10 kilometers using dense forest as a sound funnel. That's 5 kilometers of tone bounce and reverb, and the messages often as complex as full spoken sentences encoded using tonal inflection and pattern redundancy. To the untrained ear, it just sounds like drumming. But to those who understand the language of the beat, it's a whole conversation. The king's son arrives tomorrow. Prepare the sacred mask. The calabash broke during sacrifice. Messages of governance, gossip prophecy, all transmitted at speed of sound broadband before telegrams were even a colonial dream. You sit back on a stone and listen more closely. The rhythm from afar repeats itself. This time it's clearer. You ask a boy nearby what it means. He grins and says, "They are asking if our masquerade will dance tonight." You laugh. Apparently even divine rituals have RSVPs. But then you notice something more subtle, the way the rhythms travel. The tone isn't just bouncing, it's bending. It moves around obstacles. Trees absorb some frequencies. Rocks reflect others. And the drummers know this. They've trained for it. Some rhythms are built for upward travel, meant to bounce off hills and travel skyward. Others are weighted to hug the ground, good for valleys or dry season terrain. There's even a technique called forest phrasing, where the drummer slows the tempo slightly and uses longer rests between tones to allow echoes to fade before new beats begin. It's not just communication, it's acoustic engineering guided by centuries of practice and observation. One mainstream academic called it proto-sonic mapping. Another more poetically described it as orchestrated resonance with the land. Whatever you call it, the result is this message is moved not just through the land, but with it. And there's more. You hear a third rhythm now, even farther off, fainter, quicker. The boy hears it too and tilts his head. That's from adulate, he says. They are listening, but not answering yet. You nod slowly. In drum diplomacy, timing is everything. A quick reply can mean eagerness or impatience. A delayed beat can signal caution, respect, or even insult. You don't just listen to the beat, you listen to when it arrives. Which brings us to an intriguing fringe theory. Some historians suggest that Yoruba drumming wasn't just local, it was regional strategy. That is, entire alliances and rivalries were maintained via drum timing. A village might delay replying to a drummed message from a trading partner as a passive protest, or reply immediately to a known enemy as a kind of mockery. Rhythmic shade, petty politics by percussion. Of course, this kind of beat-based diplomacy required a massive amount of shared cultural code. Everyone had to agree that Duk Dun 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 meant gather and not run. There were no punctuation marks, just tone, time, and context. That's why redundancy was key. Important messages were often rephrased 3 times each with a slight variation to ensure clarity. For example, 1. The harvest is ready. 2. The yam shouts its softness. 3. The ground has opened its mouth. Each version adds meaning. Each adds confirmation. If you miss one, the next catches you. And now you're beginning to see how deeply this rhythm culture shaped everyday life. Not just when people moved, but how they moved, how they perceived distance, and how they synchronized across space. You're sitting in a forest clearing miles from any road with nothing but wood and hide for tools, and yet you're connected. The village across the ridge is just a few heartbeats away. And what happens when the messages don't come? That's when people begin to worry. A day without response. Maybe their drum skin is torn. 2 days. Maybe they're traveling. 3 days. A morning rhythm might be played, a slow descending beat pattern repeated at sunrise and dusk. It doesn't accuse, it inquires. Are you still with us? Sometimes the reply comes as a soft flutter, barely audible. Just enough to say, yes, we're still here. But when nothing comes back at all, that's when the elders meet. The forest gets quiet, and the community prepares for what it means to lose not just a neighbor, but a node in the rhythm web, a silence in the system. Still tonight, that's not your story. Tonight, every beat finds its partner. Every call gets its reply. You hear the central village drummer change the rhythm again. This time it's a combination of festival phrase and message echo braided together in a syncopated double time. The boy translates for you again. We thank you for your call. We accept your dance. Somewhere across the valley, another drum replies with a triple flourish and a long pause. That means the boy says with a grin, we will bring masks, and we will win. Ah yes, the masquerade challenge. A contest of rhythm, costume, and grace between 2 villages. There's no trophy, just honor and bragging rights for an entire year. Tonight it seems the gods will dance, but so will the people. The groove from both directions now overlaps, forming a rolling polyrhythm that makes your chest vibrate. 2 villages joined by air, by memory, by ritual, by rhythm. You look to the sky. It's almost night again. And once more you haven't asked the time. You don't need to. Because the forest has told you everything you need to know. Time travels here, not by numbers, but by echo, by patience, by listening, and right now it's exactly the right moment. Darkness descends like ink slowly poured over parchment, and the village begins to hum with a deeper rhythm. Fires are lit, not in a rush, but ceremoniously. Smoke curls upward like prayers. Somewhere a drum begins again, but this time it's not calling people. It's summoning gods. You've heard many rhythms since your arrival, but this one feels different. It's slow, thunderous, and pulsing with gravity. There's no urgency in it, just power. The kind of power that clears throats, stills chatter, and makes goats stop chewing mid-bite. This is the royal drum, and tonight it belongs to Sango, the god of thunder, lightning, fire, and yes, strict timing. In Yoruba tradition, gods don't just exist in stories, they inhabit time. And not just any time. Each deity has a preferred window, a rhythm that matches their temperament and domain. For Sango, it's the beat of decisive moments, rituals that mark judgment, justice, bold decisions, and of course, arrival of kings. As the drum rolls from the palace compound, you see people beginning to move. Not casually, not lazily, with intention. The rhythm sets the tone tonight's not for flirtation or soft songs. It's for fire, for authority, for alignment with a force that respects order, precision, and performance. You join the crowd heading toward the royal drum circle, where musicians in red cloths are arranged in a semicircle around a central platform. In the middle stands the bata drummer, his drum strapped high on his shoulder, his face focused, his eyes closed. He's not playing for the crowd. He's playing for someone much older, much higher. The bata drum is no ordinary talking drum. It's built specifically for Orisa worship, especially for Sango. Its voice is deeper, its resonance chest-thumping, and its language demanding. If the beat is off, if the player stumbles, the spirit doesn't come. Or worse, it comes angry. And yes, that's a verified cultural belief. Certain deities are thought to respond directly to their drum rhythm. If the pattern is right, the deity may mount, a devotee possess them, speak through them, dance through them. If the pattern is sloppy, the ceremony collapses. A public embarrassment, an insult to the divine. So tonight's drummer, no pressure. He begins with the call rhythm, a tight, aggressive beat full of triplets and rests. The crowd goes quiet. The other drummers join in, layering tones that mimic the call of thunder and the snap of fire. And then there's silence. The space between beats stretches, then narrows, then disappears. And then the king arrives. Not the village leader, the deity. A masked figure steps into the firelight, covered in red and white robes. No one claps, no one shouts. Instead, people lower their heads. Children are hushed. The masquerade is not a costume. It is believed to be Sango himself visiting, and his timing impeccable. He doesn't dance right away, he waits. The drums tease. They play his childhood rhythm, a playful bouncing cadence from the old Oyo Empire. He doesn't move. Then they switch to his war rhythm, hard, flat, like marching boots. Still nothing. And then they play his secret name, a 3-beat phrase known only to initiated drummers. A lightning bolt in audio form. He dances, and the entire village exhales. What follows is a masterclass in ritual synchronization. The drums don't accompany the dancer. They command him and he commands them back. His steps punctuate beats. His spins twist the tempo. At times he pauses mid-twirl, waiting for the beat to catch up. At other times, the drums anticipate his next move. It's not a performance, it's a conversation and rhythm, and you're just lucky to be in the room. This, you realize, is what it means to live in a society where gods have timetables. They don't arrive whenever they please. They arrive when summoned correctly. And summoning them isn't about words. It's about rhythm, precision, and deep embodied memory. The ritual continues. More masked figures appear, each representing different aspects of Sango's power, judgment, fire, fury, kingship, each with their own entrance rhythm. The drummers don't need to be told who's next. They listen to the dancers' footwork, to the rustle of cloth, to the tension in the crowd. The rhythm shifts slightly for each form, and in the background, elders chant, Sango gba mi. Sango so mi. Sango fi orun han. Sango accept me. Sango protect me. Sango reveal the heavens. There's a point, maybe an hour and maybe a lifetime, when the rhythm shifts again. Softer now, slower. The energy dips not from fatigue, but from closure. The god has danced. He has spoken through gesture, breath, and percussion. And now he leaves. As the final masquerader spins away into shadow, the drummers drop to a resting beat, a slow, steady pulse like a heartbeat returning to calm. The audience doesn't clap. They begin humming, low, wordless tones blending into the final rhythm like warm fog. You sit in the dust heart, pounding forehead damp, and realize you've just witnessed a temporal event that clocks can't capture. A moment where past, present, divine, and human aligned all time, not by watches, but by drummers who speak in thunder. Here's a fascinating scholarly debate you'll enjoy. Some researchers believe that these ritual timings were once so central to society that early kings modeled their rule after drum patterns. That is, justice wasn't just served, it was performed at the right beat. Even public announcements followed ritual cadence. A king who didn't keep good rhythm was considered spiritually unfit. And yes, there's fringe evidence that royal advisors would sometimes request drum readings before making decisions, asking master drummers to play rhythms until a sign appeared. A bird call, a falling leaf, a crack in the fire. Rhythm wasn't just a tool, it was a divinatory mechanism, which makes sense when you think about it. In a society where even gods follow beat charts, time is not a backdrop. It's an active agent, a participant in ritual, a partner in governance. Back in your modern life, you probably think of time as something you use or fight. Here, time is something you collaborate with. And you're not alone in that collaboration, because all around you, even now, you hear people speaking in time. A woman taps her finger 3 times before ladling soup. A man whistles a phrase before handing over his walking stick. A child claps in doublets before asking for food. It's all rhythm, all time, and you finally deeply, truly get it. When the gods of Yoruba land dance, they do not dance to our clocks. They dance to drums, because rhythm is the only time they trust. Long after the masquerades have vanished into the forest edge and the bata drums have exhaled their final thunderous notes, the village breathes in a rare golden silence. But not for long, because in Yoruba culture, one rhythm rarely ends without another gently beginning. That's the trick with time here, it doesn't stop. It just shifts its weight. As people disperse from the royal compound, the rhythm resumes, not loud or ceremonial, but faint, playful, and intermittent. You hear it behind one of the compounds, a light dudukpa do being tapped on a talking drum the size of a small child. It's not divine, it's not even official. It's a child learning to tell time. Yes, that's right. For the Yoruba, time is not only something you live by, it's something you're trained to feel, to hear, to carry in your fingers and feet from childhood. And the process starts early with rhythmic initiation games, part language lesson, part playtime, part metaphysical download. You peek around the corner and see a boy, maybe 8 years old, seated in front of a low stool. A small dundun drum sits between his knees. Beside him, an elderly woman, his grandmother perhaps, taps gently with 2 sticks, murmuring phrases in Yoruba between each measure. The boy mimics her beat, struggling to match her tempo. She taps again, this time slower. He gets it right. She nods and whispers, "Akoko Nurin." Time walks. That's how Yoruba children first learn time, not in numbers, but in movement metaphors. Time walks, time eats, time sleeps, time can smile, it can hide. These phrases aren't cute sayings. They're temporal instructions baked into the language so deeply that even toddlers internalize time as something alive with moods and will. And once rhythm enters your speech, it becomes second nature in your movement. You learn to clap in beats of 3 and 4. You learn that greeting an elder requires a pause, a subtle temporal bow before you speak. You learn that ritual storytelling must be performed in cadence, that funerals demand a pause between steps, that blessings are offered not just in words, but in the spacing between them. Here's a mainstream anthropological gem. Some Yoruba elders can identify the village of origin of a speaker based solely on the rhythm of their sentences. Not accent, not vocabulary, cadence. Language in this world is a drumless drum. You walk deeper into the village, now guided by a new rhythm, not public, not divine, but domestic. A woman is pounding yam in a wooden mortar with a pestle the length of your arm. She works in a beat, bam, pause, bam, bam, pause. Her daughter sits nearby, clapping lightly in counter rhythm. It's music, but it's also timekeeping. Because here's the secret, every household task has its own beat. And keeping that beat correctly isn't just efficient, it's culturally expected. If you pound yam off rhythm, the texture's wrong. If you stir egusi soup without the right swirls per minute, the flavor doesn't settle. One quirky story you overhear from a passing griot: there was once a suitor who visited a girl's compound to ask for her hand. The elders didn't question him. They handed him a calabash of OG fermented millet porridge and asked him to stir it while singing a praise song. If his voice was good but his rhythm was off, they sent him home. A man who cannot stir time, they said, cannot hold a family. Yikes. Swipe left on that one. But that story reveals a larger truth. Time isn't separated from behavior in Yoruba thought. It's embedded, lived, practiced. You don't check the time, you become it. And it's not just children and suitors. Adults are also measured by rhythm, especially during community labor events. You come across one now, a group of men and women rebuilding a collapsed mud wall. There's no shouting, no delegation. Just one drum played by a youth standing on a water pot and a flowing rhythm that dictates everything. One beat, lift mud. Double beat. Pass it down. Silence, smooth it into place. They're not working fast. They're working together, which is faster, actually. One elder tells you they call this rhythm akopo, meaning to gather and move. Not just a name for tempo, a name for collaboration. Time once again as a social glue. You try to imagine this in your world. A construction crew fixing a pothole while following a neighborhood percussionist. A school classroom switching subjects on cue from a handheld drum. It sounds absurd, but here it's logical. Even logical enough to function without written schedules. Which brings us to a scholarly debate worth chewing on during your next insomnia spiral, where Yoruba society is actually more temporally synchronized without mechanical clocks than modern post-industrial ones are with them. Some argue yes. They point to the way Yoruba rhythms created ambient synchrony. People constantly heard each other's movement and adjusted in real time. No need for late reminders, no room for ghosting. The rhythm arrived, you responded, end of story. Others argue that while poetic, this system relied heavily on cultural cohesion and couldn't scale to the chaos of cities, modern trade, or global markets. But here's the spicy fringe theory. Some linguists believe that modern Yoruba speech patterns still carry the ghosts of drummed time. That the cadence of a sermon, the flow of a political debate, even the tempo of a mother scolding her child, all carry the DNA of ancestral rhythm. If that's true, then even in the heart of Lagos, where car horns outnumber goats and the only drums are car speakers, time still hums like it always has. Just under the surface. Back in the village, the sun begins its slow descent again, and the domestic rhythms mellow out. You hear a mother singing her baby to sleep, not with lullaby lyrics, but with beat counts. Okanmeji, Ima Joko Leyi no Sho. 1 2, 1 2. Don't sit behind the day. A sleepy riddle, a timing spell, a heartbeat in words. And for the first time in a long time, you understand the true definition of bedtime. It's not 800 p.m. on a dial, it's when the rhythm tells you to rest. When time curls itself around you like a blanket. When your body, your house, your people, and even your ancestors exhale in unison. The dun-dun drum taps one last phrase before night swallows the compound. Alafia, peace. And then nothing. The silence after a day of rhythm is not truly silent. It lingers humming just below hearing like a muscle memory in the bones of the village. You lie back on a woven mat, hands behind your head staring into the dark sky. No stars tonight, clouds cover them like pulled curtains. But even without the twinkle above, you sense a pattern overhead. Tonight you're listening for a different kind of rhythm, not the loud call of festivals or the gossip tap of market chatter. No, this is something older, deeper, the kind of rhythm that doesn't need drums to be heard. A slow breath, a distant owl hoot, the scratch of a broom against hardened earth as someone tidies before sleep. All of these form the nighttime tempo, a crucial layer of Yoruba temporal life that often goes unnoticed except by those who rely on it most. Because while others sleep, certain members of the community are still measuring time, not with watches, not even with drums, but with shadows, breath, and dreams. You sit up slightly and notice a woman moving silently toward the grove. She's a diviner, a babalawo. She doesn't carry a flashlight, just a staff, a gourd, and a small pouch that rattles softly as she walks. Her work begins after time has quieted, because as Yoruba cosmology teaches, the deepest truths arrive in silence. And silence too has rhythm. It's not empty, it pulses. You follow at a distance, barefoot, breath held. She stops beneath a baobab tree, kneels and lays out 16 small cowrie shells in a practiced pattern. Then she begins to chant, not loudly, not melodically, just a slow whisper punctuated by clicks and breath sounds. You strain to hear, and then you realize it's metered. She's counting syllables, phrases, breaths. This is oracular time. In Yoruba divination, the future is not a place you travel to. It's a rhythm you align with. If your beat is right, you move smoothly into tomorrow. If not, you stumble. You get sick. You miss the signs. And so the babalawo listens not just to the shells, but to the spacing between their landings. A shell falling too quickly may mean haste. One that bounces twice may indicate an interrupted journey. Even the sound of the drop matters. Sharp, hollow, hesitant. Historians still debate how much of this was instinct versus learned technique. Was divination purely symbolic interpretation, or was it also about rhythmic fluency, a trained ear picking up micro-timings the uninitiated would miss? Either way, the result is the same: a diviner who knows when not to speak, who pauses before revealing, listens before deciding. Time in this ritual is not a measurement. It's a mediator between human and fate, and dreams. Dreams are where rhythm becomes narrative. Back at your mat, you overhear two elders exchanging stories from the night before. But they don't say, "I had a dream." They say, "Time visited me." One elder says he dreamed of a snake crossing a river, and the other nods, tapping his foot in slow rhythm, do, 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 do. That pattern, it's a known one. It matches the transition warning rhythm played during harvest rituals. It means be careful how you cross into the next phase. Dreams in Yoruba culture are not isolated brain sparks. They're echoes of the day's rhythm reinterpreted in sleep. If you danced in festival time, you may dream of flight. If you pounded yam off beat, you might dream of spilled oil, waste, imbalance, shame. One delightful cultural tidbit: in some communities, people keep small wooden drums beside their beds, not to play, to tap lightly before sleep, setting an intention. The belief is that by introducing a rhythm before you sleep, you give your mind a beat to dream by, like setting your internal timepiece to the right frequency. Tonight you try it. 1 tap, pause, 2 taps, pause, 1 again. Then you breathe and dream. You don't remember the full dream, just fragments. A bird calling your name in triple time. A river that reversed its flow to the sound of a flute. A marketplace in the sky where no one sold, only listened. You wake slowly, unsure of how long you've been asleep. There's no light, but you know time has passed because the rhythm has changed again. This one is delicate, fragile, a single note repeated at long intervals like the universe blinking. It's the pre-dawn rhythm, not the divine one you heard before, but its cousin. The domestic pre-dawn used by a few villagers who must rise early, bakers, potters, and those preparing sacrifices. You sit up and notice a man crouched near an oven built from clay. He sprinkles flour in a circle, and then without thinking begins to hum. You recognize the tune. It's the same one the child used on his dundun yesterday. It's a time signature passed down encoded in flour and breath. The man isn't watching a timer. He's listening to how the heat crackles, to the sound of expanding dough. Every aspect of his work is tied to rhythm. If the beat of his task is off, the bread won't rise right. The ancestors won't be pleased. He'll hear about it in tomorrow's gossip rhythm, guaranteed. And that's another truth worth soaking in, and Yoruba life mistakes have echo. If your rhythm is off today, it reverberates into gossip, into illness, into family disagreement. Rhythm is not just etiquette, it's ethics. So people learn, they internalize the beat, not because they fear punishment, but because they fear dissonance. A day out of rhythm feels wrong, like mismatched socks in your soul. And yet here's the twist, not all rhythms are taught, some are discovered. There's a word for this, ayonrin. It means a rhythm that finds you. It can happen during a walk, during a chant, even while grinding herbs. Suddenly you start tapping and the rhythm doesn't come from memory. It comes from somewhere else. Some say it's the ancestors sending a message. Others say it's your own spirit revealing its tempo. Whatever it is, once you find an ayonrin, it stays with you, like a fingerprint. You'll hear it echoed in your children's footsteps, in your laughter, even in your morning songs. And yes, each person, they say, has a morning rhythm, a beat that will be played only once, only at their death. It's not random. It's composed by a close relative or drum elder based on how you lived. If you were steady, slow, strong beats. If you were erratic, sudden changes, odd syncopation, your life distilled into rhythm, a final tempo, a farewell. As the pre-dawn rhythm swells and others begin to stir, you roll over and face the sky again. It's still dark, but you feel ready. Not because you know what time it is, but because you can feel its rhythm. It's coming. It's near. It's right on beat. The horizon begins to blush, and the first light presses softly against the edge of the village like a polite guest knocking on the gate. You stretch beneath your mat's faded fibers and feel that quiet tingle in your chest, the subtle prelude to movement. Before any rooster crows, before even the babies stir, the drum speaks first. But this time, the rhythm is not a signal to wake. It's a threshold rhythm, a rare early morning cadence known as ibere akuko, beginning time. It's different from the market beat or the farming loop. It's not a call to work. It's a reminder you have arrived at another opening. Because time for the Yoruba is not one long string. It's a spiral marked by beginnings that echo old beginnings. And this dawn, it mirrors other dawns, the start of a child's naming ceremony, the first fire of the planting season, the first words spoken by a new chief. Each opening is its own drum beat. You sit up listening. The beat is minimal 3 strokes spaced wide, then silence, then 3 again. The pause between is longer than you expect, but that's the point. The silence is the rhythm. It creates the space into which life moves. And today, life moves with naming. The village is preparing for an ikomojo ceremony, the ritual naming of a newborn. You're invited not because you're special, but because everyone is. In Yoruba thought, a child belongs to everyone's rhythm. When a baby is born, the time of their arrival isn't just recorded, it's remembered in sound. You follow a small group of neighbors toward a compound near the river. The drumming grows louder, not urgent, but celebratory. You hear a variation of the beginning rhythm layered with jingles and claps. A woman ululates, and the child's father emerges from the house with the baby swaddled in a patterned cloth. The mother is not far behind, but she stays in shadow. For now, the moment is communal. And central to it is the naming drum, a special talking drum, tuned higher than most, designed to mimic speech more sharply. It's not just announcing that a child exists, it's saying their name. And this is where things get mind-bending. The Yoruba don't choose names the way you might. They don't just pick something pretty or trendy. Names are temporal encodings. They reflect when the child was born, what was happening in the community, and what energy was present. Sometimes they even reference the specific rhythm heard on the day of birth. So if a baby is born during a peaceful, slow workday, she might be named Ayamoju, time flows gently. If born on a festival afternoon, Ajoyo, time dances. If born just after someone important passed away, maybe a Tanju, time returns through tears. And if, say, the mother gave birth just as the echo rhythm bounced between villages, that baby might bear the name Ayelagbo. The world echoes back. Each name a timestamp, each syllable a beat. Now here's the wild part in the ceremony. The drum speaks the name first, even before the elders say it aloud. The drummer who has spent the night composing uses his sticks to produce the tonal pattern of the name. Yoruba being a tonal language, this is not symbolic, it's literal. The name has a sound, and that sound must be played correctly or the baby's rhythm could be set wrong. The elder woman overseeing the ritual listens carefully. If the drum misspeaks, she raises her hand. The drummer corrects. This might happen 2 or 3 times. The stakes are high, not because the spirits are petty, but because the rhythm of a name stays with you. It's said that a child whose name was mistimed may grow restless, out of step. Life may feel jagged to them, events arriving too fast or too slow. Fixing it later requires a second ceremony, a rhythmic rebalancing, complete with beat realignment and prayer. But today, no such trouble. The drummer plays, the elder smiles. The people repeat the name, clapping in time, and the baby opens their eyes. In that moment, you understand what it means to be born into time, not just into space. The ceremony continues with blessings. Elders pass small items over the child's body: salt for preservation, water for clarity, palm oil for richness. Each action is paired with a spoken rhythm, a kind of verbal percussion delivered in call and response. And then comes the chant, Ti akoko ba pe omo yo dahun. When time calls, the child will answer. This isn't just poetry. It's a declaration that the child will remain in rhythm with their destiny. That when their moment comes, whatever that moment is, they'll hear it in the beat and move toward it. You learn another quirky detail. Many families keep a rhythm book, a physical or remembered collection of patterns played during major life events. It might include the naming beat, a sickness beat, a marriage beat, even a private prayer rhythm. The family drummer, yes, that's a role, learns to play them on command during crises or celebrations. Need to calm a child, play their name rhythm. Need to honor a grandmother's passing, play her planting day cadence. Need to make a decision, repeat the threshold rhythm and wait for clarity. In this way, Yoruba families build a personal time archive stored not in files but in muscle memory and wood skin. Some fringe scholars have drawn comparisons to genetic memory, suggesting that rhythm in Yoruba life is almost hereditary. Children learn their family's rhythms before they can speak. They carry them in gait, in laughter, even in heartbeat. One study claimed that heart rates often sync during ceremonies, forming a collective biological rhythm. Maybe it's real, maybe it's just magic. Either way, the result is the same: a society where time is not fought but followed. The naming ends with a feast, and the beat shifts again, now playful, syncopated, filled with laughter. Children chase each other around mortar pots. A grandfather plays a quick rhythm with spoons on a calabash lid. No one tells them to stop. Rhythm here is playable. It belongs to everyone. You lean back full of pounded yam and pepper stew and notice something exquisite. The drummer has started repeating the baby's name rhythm slightly slower now, like a lullaby. It will echo through the day, through the week, maybe for years, until one day the child recognizes it without knowing why, because that's how time works here. You don't track it, you remember it, you carry it, and it carries you. The sun climbs now with more confidence, warming the ochre rooftops and gently pushing shadows back into the corners. Morning is no longer a whisper. It's in full rhythm now, daily, earthy, and unmistakably practical. Today's beat, work, rhythm. Specifically the Yoruba tradition of timed labor where each task hums to its own metronome. You're following a line of farmers out to the yam fields. Some carry hoes over their shoulders, others hold woven baskets against their hips. A few are already humming, setting the pace for their work, with short, repetitive tunes what Yoruba speakers call orinisi, or songs of the task. But the beat behind their feet that comes from a single drummer trailing the group. He's not there for morale, he's there for coordination. In Yoruba farming culture, especially before the introduction of Western time tools, whole planting sessions were scheduled and paced using live rhythm. The drummer begins with a low, consistent beat, duke, duck, duck. Every few steps, he adds a triplet to signal a shift in pace. It's not just background noise, it's agricultural tempo control. When they reach the first plot, the work begins without a word. Dig, step, plant, pat, move. The beat repeats and the line of workers move as one body. It's like watching a well-rehearsed dance company, but instead of choreography, this is pure labor. Dig, step, plant. Here's a historical truth: among the Yoruba, agricultural rhythms were once so well established that visitors from other tribes and later colonial observers remarked on how silent and calm Yoruba farming appeared. No shouting, no orders, just rhythm. One British anthropologist even wrote in his journal, "The land is worked by percussion, and the land responds." You crouch to watch an elder dig. He doesn't sweat much. His movements are minimal, efficient, elegant even. He tells you, if your hand moves with time, your back won't break. Then he taps the side of his hoe twice, matching the rhythm in the air. Tico, tico. You smile. He's not just working, he's conversing with the land. Nearby, a young boy keeps a gourd rattle shaking in time. Not randomly, he's helping to reinforce the tempo, especially when the group starts to slow. The sound doesn't nag them, it nudges them. Rhythm here is gentle accountability. But not all work happens in rows. You're taken next to a dying shed, a wooden structure filled with hanging fabrics and clay vats. The women here are dyeing cloth using indigo fermentation, a chemical process so precise it could make a lab technician sweat. And guess how they measure their timing? By rhythm, of course. Each fabric dip is timed to a beat, one pattern for soaking, another for lifting, another for oxygen exposure. The lead dyer, a woman with a scar shaped like a question mark on her cheek, taps a spoon against a calabash to indicate the phases. She tells you if you leave it too long, the color spoils. If you rush it, it won't take. Then she winks. But if you move in rhythm, the cloth will sing. The song of the cloth is an old belief that properly dyed fabric will make a soft sound when held up to the ear. Is it superstition, maybe? Or maybe it's the echo of centuries of measured movement soaked into cotton. Now let's head back into town because another work rhythm is echoing from the blacksmith's corner. Yes, even metal has a beat. You hear it before you see it. Tang, 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 pause. A rising beat punctuated by silence. The blacksmith and his apprentice take turns, one strikes the other, rotates the iron. You ask how they know when to switch? The apprentice laughs. You listen to the metal. Turns out the cooling sound of the iron tells them when it's ready to be turned. It's not about temperature readings, it's about resonance. When the metal sounds thick, they flip it. If it sounds hollow, they wait. Rhythm by resonance. A fringe theory you overheard from a drumming enthusiast. Some blacksmiths even tuned their tools to produce pitches that matched work rhythms. That way, they didn't just work efficiently, they made music by accident. If that's true, it would make them the world's first industrial DJs. Eat your heart out, techno. At this point, you realize something massive. Time isn't just marked by rhythm, it's regulated by task rhythm. Each job has its own tempo, some slower, some faster. And the people who master those tempos, they become the keepers of that time. In the dyeing shed, that's the indigo mother. In the field, the rhythm hoe master. In the smithy, the tempo forger. Each of them not just a craftsperson, but a time steward. Here's the kicker: if someone falls out of rhythm, starts moving too fast or too slow, the group doesn't scold them. The drummer simply changes the beat. Subtle, adaptive, clever. The rhythm adjusts to recenter the team, not shame the outlier. And sometimes the drum stops altogether. That's your next big lesson. Midday comes the sun at its highest, and suddenly, nothing. The rhythm halts. Everyone stops working. No one announces it. No one checks a watch. They just feel it. This is the Yoruba pause rhythm, an absence of sound so precise it becomes the signal. Everyone finds shade drinks, water stretches. Someone starts tapping a light rhythm on a pot, but it's not the work beat. It's leisure tempo now. Time for stories, jokes, and a little gossip. You ask an elder, "How do you know when the break is over?" He smiles. "The wind tells us." That's not a metaphor. He means it. There's a time when the air cools ever so slightly, when the heat shifts from pounding to brushing. And that moment, the drummer picks it up. He starts again, softly, then stronger. Everyone rises. Time begins again. This is not coincidence. This is biological temporal synergy. The rhythm is synced to the land, the weather, the people. Scholars have tried to model this using behavioral science. Some believe it's a result of entrainment, a neurological process where humans sync up with auditory stimuli, improving group efficiency. Others think it's cultural conditioning passed through generations. But maybe it's magic. Because when the break ends and the rhythm resumes, everyone picks up exactly where they left off. No delays, no confusion, just flow. And as you walk back to your mat, sweat-dried limbs, tired but not sore, you realize you've been working all morning without once asking, "What time is it?" Instead, you've moved like this: tap, step, plant, dip, lift, shake, swing, rotate. Cool. Time has passed, work has been done, and not a single clock was needed. You wake to the sound of silence, not the absence of noise, but the quiet stretch between two pulses. The kind of silence that breathes like a resting drumhead. And you know instinctively that the rhythm has shifted again. Today isn't a market day, a planting day, or even a work day. It's something else. Something you can feel in the way the chickens don't peck so aggressively, and the old men in the corner don't bother to argue about yam prices. It's a ceremonial loop day, the kind of day that doesn't occur on a calendar, but folds back on itself with every beat. These aren't days that repeat every year. They recur when the time calls them back. The Yoruba don't celebrate anniversaries the way you might. Birthdays, they're fluid. Death remembrances, they float. What really matters are the ceremonial cycles, ritual events triggered by beat season and cosmic hint. Sometimes they happen after 1 year, sometimes after 3. And sometimes the same ceremony might happen 3 times in one lunar season. Not by mistake, by rhythm. Today, the elders have declared it's time for the cycle of Eri, a deeply spiritual observance dedicated to ancestral cleansing and realignment. The last time it happened, no one quite agrees. Some say 8 moons ago. Others say it hasn't occurred in 4 years. But the village drummer felt a shift last week, played the return rhythm during an evening lull, and the oldest woman in the village nodded. She simply said, "It's time." That's how you know. You follow the procession to a circular clearing at the forest's edge. At the center sits a conical mound of earth ringed with smooth stones. This is Ori Oruko, the sacred site of names where the ancestral rhythms are stored. Not written, not recorded, just remembered. Around you, the atmosphere is thick, not with smoke or heat, but expectation. People carry not candles or flowers, but instruments, small gongs, bone flutes, talking drums, no bigger than a dinner plate. Because to participate in a ceremonial loop, you must bring your own rhythm. This is where it gets fascinating. Each participant's family is assigned a ritual motif, a short rhythm that represents their lineage. It's not just symbolic, it's used to call forth the memory time of that family. One family's motif might be 3 slow beats followed by a trill. Another's might mimic bird calls. Yet another might imitate rainfall on palm fronds. These motifs are old, like we don't remember when we learned them old. You're paired with a young man whose grandmother was the community's rhythm keeper. He shows you his family's motif, a flick-tap-tap with a pause. He plays it on a palm nut shell against his thigh. It's soft, but it resonates. He whispers, "When the call circle begins, we each play this. If our ancestors are listening, the rhythm will echo back." You raise an eyebrow, like, literally, he nods, in some way. Now the drummers begin. They play a circle rhythm, a rolling loop, with no beginning or end, built to feel like it has always been playing. It's a 7-beat loop, which feels odd at first, unbalanced. But as it continues, your body adjusts. You stop trying to anticipate the next beat, you just fall into it. That's the point. Yoruba ceremonial time isn't about measurement, it's about immersion. You don't watch the hourglass, you step inside it. Soon, one elder steps forward and plays his family's motif. It's brief, almost shy. The circle rhythm doesn't stop, it just softens. Then someone across the circle plays a nearly identical motif, slightly delayed. The elder smiles, his rhythm echoed. The crowd murmurs, and so it begins. One by one, families step forward. They tap, beat, whistle, or hum their ancestral motif into the shared rhythm. Some get echoes, some don't. No one judges. Echoes are not about merit, they're about readiness. One woman plays a motif and begins to weep before it's even done. Her hands shake. The echo comes not in a beat, but in a sudden gust of wind that sweeps through the circle and knocks over a calabash. The drummers pause. The oldest woman says, "That is an answer." You realize something the Yoruba don't believe in linear memory. They believe in rhythmic memory. Events, people, blessings, traumas, they all have a beat. And when that beat returns in the world, so does the event. So does the person. Temporality here is not historical. It's ritualistic, which is why ceremonial loops aren't scheduled. They're replayed when their rhythm resurfaces. When the sound of 1784 is heard in 2025, the past becomes present again, not as nostalgia, as reality. This notion has puzzled and fascinated anthropologists for years. Some dismiss it as metaphor. Others argue it's an advanced form of cyclical timekeeping that predates written calendars. A few fringe theorists even suggest it points to an intuitive understanding of quantum recurrence events not repeating mechanically, but vibrationally. You don't know about quantum anything right now. What you do know is that your bones are buzzing. The drummers build intensity. The 7-beat cycle becomes layered, almost tribal house music centuries before turntables. Some people start to sway. Others sit heads bowed. A few chant. The air is electric. Then without warning, a boy no older than 10 plays a simple beat. 2 taps. Silence. 1 more tap. The beat seems insignificant, but a woman across the circle gasps. "That was my father's rhythm," she says, "but we never taught it to him." The circle pauses. An elder steps forward and says softly, "Time has returned." There is no applause, just nods, smiles. One man places a cloth over the boy's shoulders. No one makes a big deal, but you can feel it, the circle has bent. A past moment has re-entered. This is what ceremonial loops are for. Not celebration, reintegration. They allow people to reabsorb rhythms that were lost, buried, forgotten. They restore temporal coherence to families, to villages, to souls. and they are almost impossible to explain. Try putting that in a Google Calendar invite. Hey, Circle of Temporal Reintegration this Thursday. BYOD, bring your own drum. Still here you are inside the loop, watching as time not only passes but returns. Recolored, reweighted, replayed. As the ceremony ends, the lead drummer strikes a slow closing cadence. 4 beats, pause, 4 again. The same rhythm used when a festival ends or a king finishes speaking. It doesn't say goodbye. It says, this rhythm will return. You walk back to the village in silence, but in your head, that 7-beat cycle spins like a gentle cyclone. Maybe you'll forget it tomorrow, but if you ever hear it again on a street corner in a whisper in a dream, you'll know it's not just a sound. It's time calling you back. The afterglow of the cycle of airy ceremony still hums in the air as you make your way back toward the center of the village. Past the grove, past the yard where children chase fireflies toward the public square, now painted in twilight shadows. The drums have quieted, but not entirely. They persist in a faint hum, like an opening quite larger than you'd expect, shaped by a ceremonial loop that refuses to vanish. Tonight you learn about how rhythms persist between rituals, forming what the Yoruba call temporal residues. These are not ghost stories or family legends. They are echoes of events, say ceremonies or births or ancestral visits that embed themselves in the ambient soundscape, lingering weeks, even months after the event. They remind the village that time didn't just pass. It arrived and stays in subtle form. You pass by a gourd resting on a rack, its hollow interior, a nightly humming chamber. You hear nothing obvious, but someone taps it gently with a finger, and the paused rhythm inside hums back. That tap is like memory, triggering memory. That gourd is filled with invisible beat echoes. You can feel it. Temporal residue means that every drum beat, every ritual leaves harmonic memory in objects and places and people. A water pot that once participated in a naming ceremony will hum slightly when tapped for months afterward, reminding the holder of that child's ritual moment. One evening, an elder explained when time happens, we store it. Not in records, but in sound, tin roof vibrations, drum wooden heels, even footsteps across clay floors. Some drummers say they can still wake certain rhythms by tapping a stored object like coaxing a memory back. It's subtle and deeply human. And tonight, you're witnessing what happens when people live with those residues as part of daily rhythm. You sit near a stall in the square where traders sell roasted maize and ground nuts. The vendor, a middle-aged woman, is busy now, but earlier she tapped the iron lid of her container at 4 soft intervals, a closing cadence from last week's shrine reopening ceremony. The rhythm echoed, and children nearby paused smiles, clipping in half. The shrine beat, they called it. It is not drummed anymore, but remembered. Some anthropologists whisper about this acoustic afterlives, the material trace of a musical event living on in future soundscapes. Maybe dismiss it as folklore. Maybe theorize about vibration science. Either way, you see it now, not just feel it. Then come the night market rhythms, an unofficial but beloved tempo that picks up after dusk. Not for work, not for ritual, for social circulation. People drift through improvised lanes of firelight and laughter. Someone taps out a beat at a porch. Another responds. A child clicks a shoe against a stone. The rhythm forms, not orchestrated but emergent, and everyone understands it. You ask the roasted maize seller why, despite no official drumming, people follow these beats. She shrugs and smiles. Because rhythm lives in our feet, even here. So in Yoruba villages, public rhythm is never fully dark because rhythm persists culturally. A night market rhythm might feel unplanned, but you sense its tempo. You feel the communal hum, and in these rhythms there's still coordination. Tonight, a group gathers for a storytelling circle beneath a street lamp. A griot begins with a beat pattern handed down by his father. Others join a thumb drum, a low whistle, a wooden block. Stories and rhythms overlap. not performance, co-creation, a living tapestry of narrative passing time and Parisia. Everyone's voice matters. Clocks might say it's late, but this night says it's still time. As you wander, you recall earlier sections, how ceremonial loops return rhythms, how everyday work beats maintain flow, how named rhythms carry meaning. And then you realize you've absorbed them too. Not logs in your brain, but pulses in your breath. Every inhalation counts ta, ni, ta, ta, not your pulse. Rhythm itself. There's a final layer you haven't yet experienced, the global echo. Even as Lagos roars with traffic and the internet hums with algorithms and pockets, families, rituals, choirs, rhythms from villages like this survive. They leak into diaspora music, into language, cadences, into political chant. Your consciousness may be far from this square tonight, but your attention still synchronizes when you hear a Yemoja chant in a carnival or a talking drum solo on YouTube. That's when we get to a powerful realization: timekeeping in Yoruba culture wasn't just local, it was translocal. Even when you leave the village, you carry echo rhythms in your memory and body, and they can travel across borders, through generations, across centuries. As you gather your thoughts to finally retire for the night, you pause near a hammock under a lantern. Another tap pattern drifts down from above a palm frond, clicked by wind but at the pace of a restful lullaby. It makes your eyelids heavy. You realize even in vegetative motion, nature speaks rhythm. It beckons sleep. So you climb into the hammock, letting that lull let you settle. What have you learned tonight? Time can arrive by rhythm, not just mark time. Time can return in loops, not just marches. Time is not ownership, it's resonance. And rhythm is always the language. Before the day completely slides away, you recall a fragment from earlier. When time calls, the child will answer. Now you understand you have answered, not just by staying, but by listening, and that changes everything. By now, you no longer need the sun or a schedule to sense the time. You wake not because of a rooster, not even because of a drum, but because your body has entrained to the rhythm around you. It's a quiet kind of power. You stretch beneath the shade of the palm-thatched roof heart, ticking like a steady drum beat. You don't own a watch. You don't need one. Time here is not read, it is felt. And today you feel a new kind of time, a time not governed by calendars or rituals, but by music itself. Welcome to a world where time was once musical. In Yoruba cosmology, the universe did not begin with a bang. It began with a beat. According to some oral traditions, the gods brought order to chaos not by speaking, but by drumming. They created time by establishing a pulse, a sequence, a rhythm. And the earliest humans didn't just measure time by the sun, they inherited that celestial beat and made it audible. That's why even outside of ritual, Yoruba life once moved to the tempo of music. Every domain, farming, cooking, morning wooing had its own soundtrack. But more than that, each beat cycle was a form of temporal coding. This wasn't background noise. This was time manifested in sound. And nowhere is that more beautifully preserved than in the art of the Bata drum ensemble. Today you sit with an elderly drummer under a mango tree as he unrolls a cloth holding 4 differently sized drums. These aren't just instruments, they're timepieces. Not in the mark the hour sense, but in the mark the moment sense. Each drum represents a distinct pulse of social life. One is the heartbeat of courtship. One is the alert tone of a town meeting. One is the lamentation drone of a funeral. Each rhythm carries time inside it, he says. You don't learn the beat, you remember the moment. He taps one drum gently. The sound is soft, but it vibrates your ribs. This one is played when twins are born, he adds. It only comes out then. It hits you. This is temporal exclusivity rhythm so sacred they appear once per life event. The idea isn't to measure time, it's to mark it musically, like lighting a flare that says, this moment matters. And these rhythms are not just performance, they're embodied narrative. A certain sequence of tones doesn't just represent a wedding, it mimics the emotions of a wedding, The anticipation, the public declaration, the family tension, the euphoria. People hear it and their bodies remember even if they don't know why. You ask the drummer, what happens if you play the wrong rhythm at the wrong time? He frowns. Confusion, misdirection, maybe worse. He doesn't elaborate. He doesn't have to. This belief that time, if drummed incorrectly, can fracture echoes an old metaphysical theory that human harmony with the world depends on rhythmic integrity. That when we are offbeat socially, morally, spiritually, our lives wobble. Mistakes compound, opportunities slip. This is not metaphor. It's literal belief. And while the Bata ensemble may sound like a concert to you, it's actually a clock in symphony. But it's a clock with no fixed numbers, only recurring emotional intervals. Compare this to your modern life. You set alarms, mark appointments, and schedule meetings. Your time is segmented, ruled by arbitrary quantities. You obey your calendar. It doesn't obey you. But in the old Yoruba model, you live the beat. You sing the season. You feel the moment. And in that moment, you are never too early or too late. You are simply present at tempo. Later, you sit in on a musical rehearsal with young drummers training for a festival. The teacher is a wiry man who seems made entirely of wrists. He doesn't count 1 to 2, 3. He shouts metaphors, play like fire, chasing wind, now move like a lazy river, drop the note like it's too heavy to hold. This isn't musical instruction, it's temporal coaching. He's teaching them how to match their playing to emotional time, how to stretch a beat like grief or punch it like joy. These kids aren't just learning music, they're learning how to move through life. And here's something to melt your brain in. Older times, Yoruba people didn't just hear rhythms, they saw them. Yes, certain rhythm patterns were translated into visual motifs, beaded designs, woven cloth patterns, carved symbols. A spiral rhythm might become a sash design. A staccato beat might appear in tattoo form. This was auditory time turned tactile. Historians still argue whether these visuals were true musical notation or just artistic echoes. But there's no debate about one thing: they helped encode moments for the eye and memory. Imagine remembering your mother's funeral not by date, but by the rhythm stitched into your collar. Time as art, and then comes dance, the ultimate expression of musical time. You join a group of dancers in the square. There's no choreographer, no leader, just a drummer and about 20 people ranging from teens to grandmas. The beat begins light teasing, full of space, and people move, not in sync, but in coherence. Each person catches the beat in their own way. A tap of the shoulder, a twist of the heel, a full spin. No one is off. Everyone is correct. Because the rhythm is not a command, it's an invitation. And in that moment, you realize what your Western clock could never teach. That musical time is not a straight path. It's a pulse that meets you where you are. This is why Yoruba drumming has survived colonization, modernization, globalization. Not just because it's beautiful, because it works. It still allows people, young or old, to find their moment, their alignment, their groove. Even now in diaspora communities across the world, Yoruba rhythms are guiding naming ceremonies, weddings, protests, and poetry readings. The rhythm never left. It just traveled. So tonight, as the stars finally return to the sky, you find yourself tapping a simple beat into the ground tap. Tap, tap, tap. No one taught it to you. You didn't write it down. But it's yours now. Your own personal musical time. And somehow you know exactly what it means. The rhythm today is different, slower, weightier, as if the air itself has grown thick with memory. You hear it in the way sandals scuff the earth and how no one speaks above a murmur. Even the birds seem to respect the tempo. A funeral is coming, and with it, a rhythm that no one plays lightly. In Yoruba culture, death is not the end. It is a return of passage back to the ancestral plane. but like any journey, it must be measured, guided, and marked by sound. And not just any sound. The dead deserve their own time, ushered by the drum and the death clock. You stand on the edge of a gathering compound, watching as family members move with somber precision. At the center, a group of drummers tune their talking drums, stretching the hide, checking the tone, tapping gently as if coaxing something alive from within the wood. Each stroke is intentional. This isn't performance, it's navigation. In Yoruba funerary tradition, the drum doesn't just mark time, it escorts the spirit. The dead cannot find their way without it. The rhythm becomes a map across realms. You watch as a lead drummer, his face lined like a carved mask, begins a slow, deliberate beat. Do, do, do. A pause, then again, do, do, do. The crowd stiffens slightly. That pattern, it's known as akoko iku, the death hour rhythm. It is not played often and never casually. The beat carries more than grief. It carries a countdown not to burial, but to departure. According to Yoruba cosmology, the soul lingers for several days after death. The rhythms played during this time help calibrate that departure, ensuring that the spirit finds its route to the ancestral domain. Without the correct beats, it's believed a soul might hover confused, what some call a wandering one. It's not punishment. It's simply poor timing. And timing today is everything. You see mourners gathered dressed in indigo, burgundy, and white, not black. In Yoruba funerals, color speaks to the rhythm of the life lived. White for peace, indigo for wisdom, burgundy for depth. They move slowly in steps that match the drum's pace. Left foot, pause. Right foot, double tap. Even the grieving follow the rhythm, letting it carry their sorrow like a gentle tide. You notice something peculiar. Two drummers alternate. One plays the now rhythm, marking the present grief. The other plays a was rhythm, recalling the life of the departed. It's a dual beat dialogue between memory and mourning, past and presence. This practice, known as Ijo Arun, creates a layered time signature that lets mourners feel multiple emotional tempos at once. You might find yourself crying during one rhythm, then smiling as the other reminds you of a shared story, a joke, a wedding dance. That's the beauty of Yoruba time. It doesn't ask you to flatten your emotions. It lets you live them in rhythm. An elderly woman beside you whispers, "He was born to the fire drum rhythm. It's only right he returns through it." You ask her what that means. She points toward the sky. He came in shouting like a storm. That rhythm, he owned it. It called him once. It calls him now. Here's the fascinating thing. Many Yoruba families know the birth rhythm of each member. And when that person passes, the same beat is played but in reverse. The sequence is flipped, creating a mirrored exit that reflects the mirrored journey. Anthropologists refer to this as reverse temporal coding. In simple terms, birth is an entrance, death is the outro, and both deserve their own musical notation. But there's more. As the body is prepared, you're led to a smaller circle, just 5 drummers seated in silence, eyes closed. This is the timing circle. Their job isn't to play loudly, it's to listen. They attune themselves to the soul rhythm, trying to detect subtle signals, vibrations, echoes, even bird calls that might indicate when the soul is ready to depart. You watch as one slowly lifts his drum and plays a single beat. The others nod. A low murmur passes through the crowd. The timing is right, and so the countdown begins. Over the next hours, the drum beat gradually changes, faster then slower, louder then whisper soft. Each shift is meaningful. The drummers are not improvising. They are tracking the spirit's path. A particularly sacred sequence, the drum bridge, is played when the body is taken toward its final resting place. This pattern is both musical and directional. Some even say the specific frequencies resonate with the earth, allowing the ancestors underground to receive the arrival. Is it superstition, or is it sound engineering? Historians still argue whether these death rhythms were based on astrology, weather, or simply intuition. But one thing is agreed upon: they work. People report feeling closure, alignment, even relief once the final beat is played. And that final beat is not a crash, not a bang, it's a fade. One long trailing rhythm gently dissolving into silence. Not an end, just a stillness. Afterward, people begin to speak again. They eat, tell stories, laugh through tears. But every so often, someone taps the side of a bench or the bottom of a bowl, repeating a small motif. You recognize it. It's the was rhythm, the one that celebrates who the person was. It's not the loud beat of life. It's the quiet one of memory. That rhythm might be tapped for weeks, even months, in random places. A street corner, a kitchen, a festival. It says he was here, and rhythm remembers. Later you find yourself tapping it too. Not because you knew the man, but because you felt the beat. That's Yoruba time. It does not vanish, it lingers. Even in death, it dances. The night after the funeral hush is not quiet in the way you'd expect. It's full of echoes. Faint, insistent lingering. It drips like molasses through memory and air. In these hours, even sleep is hesitant. When one finally settles, it's not a fall. It's a settling in, as though your consciousness sinks to a beat still drumming in the distance. You wake to the sound of post-funeral reflection rhythms. These are almost invisible limbs, shifting feet, brushing mats, someone tapping a spoon against a bowl. If you weren't listening, you'd think it was ambient noise. But in reality, this is rhythm memory at work, a collective breathing pattern of mourning and recalibration. In Yoruba life, grief isn't a solitary journey. It's a shared timing. It passes through households, compounds, even strangers. After funerals, people don't simply resume life. They sustain rhythm, echoes, hope, interwoven with sorrow in deliberate gestures that remind the living we are together and time still carries bill. You move through the village now. At one compound, children gather around a hushed storyteller. The griot speaks softly, but in measured cadence. The story is about the departed, a favorite child, a trickster uncle, a mother who danced beneath the moon. Though the rhythm sounds gentle, it carries weight. It's paced to let grief settle, to let memory breathe, and to let laughter return. That pacing is story rhythm where words and timing carry healing. Elsewhere inside another compound, an elder is brewing palm wine over a fire. He taps the calabash lid twice, then pauses. At that tap, everyone knows someone's memory is being toasted. He raises his cup in silent tribute, and others follow suit. That's ritual, imbibition, and rhythm, an unspoken resonance of community legacy and warmth. You realize now that time in Yoruba culture isn't just a schedule, it's a social rhythm, a living pulse sustained by collective action. Even after major events, the beat lingers in homes and leaky roofs that echo taps and footsteps on paths and dripping wells. Those drips echo the funeral cluster. They mean the day still matters. The person still matters. The rhythm continues. By midday, a group of women gather in the open-air kitchen area. They sing quietly while preparing stew. Each ladle into the pot is a beat. Each once-over of the spoon is a reprise. They don't sing on tempo so much as weave their speech into the rhythm. It's not performance, it's maternal tempo, shared cooking rhythm. As they work, they reflect on the departed's favorite recipes. In this, cooking becomes a form of time inheritance, flavors carried in beats and meals and repetition. Here's something fascinating. There are families who avoid cooking a certain dish for weeks after a person dies, especially if that person loved it. The drum beat for that recipe lingers too sharply. They fear it would summon sorrow instead of sustenance. So they pause the pattern, let time rest, and often restart later with a tribute cook beat, a new rhythm different from the previous pattern. A respectful reset. You return to the village square just as the late afternoon breeze begins to curl through trees. A light percussion invites you to gather near rooster calls, wood tapping low hums from far-reaching drums. It's not playful. It's steady. It's called the return to rhythm cadence, and it signals it's time to resume normal life, but softly, thoughtfully. People don't rush in, they fold into it. You notice children reenacting games, but quieter than before. Parents nod silently, unaware you're watching. Even goats seem to roam slower. The entire place breathes to a gentle counterbeat recovery, not reinvention. You too begin to move in that soft tempo. You walk barefoot across clay, feel small sticks snap beneath your feet. You pick one up and begin to tap gently. Pause. 1, 2. Pause. It becomes your meditation, your apology, your tribute. Someone catches your eye and smiles. No words, just recognition of the shared beat. Their body echoes yours and you realize you've become part of it. Provided rhythm, received rhythm, and now you share rhythm. As dusk folds into evening and the world softens into lap of crickets and fireflies, you gather with others around fires. Talking drums rest nearby, but no one plays them. Instead, someone brings a small hand drum and whispers a closing beat, a slow 4-stroke pulse that matches the heart, matches the fire, matches the dark. Others hum along eyelids drooping. Everyone is at rest together. It's not an ending, more like a pause. In Yoruba, thinking there is no cliff edge finish, there is the next beat, and it is expected, it is welcome, it is part of the cycle. You lie under the sky, now no stars, but a sense of rhythm settling into you. You carry echoes of funeral beat, reflection, beat, cooking, beat, pause, beat, all woven gently into your breath. You close your eyes and the rhythm becomes quiet, not absent, just internal. The first sound of the new day is not a rooster or a baby's cry. It's a rhythm, a dry stick brushing corrugated iron, played by a boy with no name and no shoes. You sit up and smile. It's been days now, but you've come to expect it. This is his thing every dawn. Without fail, he scratches the same 4-beat rhythm across that metal sheet. Not for a reason, not for applause, just because that's his morning beat. And that's the truth that settles over you like the first warmth of sunlight in Yoruba life. Every person eventually finds a rhythm of their own. This is personal, temporal identity, and it might be the most poetic part of everything you've learned. Time in this culture doesn't just pass through people, it gets shaped by them. Each person's rhythm becomes a way of announcing who they are, even if no words are spoken. You've already seen it in naming ceremonies, funerals, cooking work. But today you follow people through their everyday personal rhythms, the ones that aren't attached to ritual, yet still hold deep meaning. Your first stop, the tailor's courtyard. She's sitting on a low stool moving fabric beneath a foot-powered sewing machine. The rhythm incredibly precise, thump, thump, hiss, thump. You listen closely. Every cloth worker in the area has a slightly different pace. You ask if this is deliberate. She chuckles. No two hands move the same, she says. So our times are different. Her rhythm, she explains, matches her temperament. Calm, slow, slightly behind the drum line, but steady. Her cousin, who works across the alley, sews with fast, sharp strokes. Always early, always impatient. They say our threads argue, she jokes. And sure enough, in a wedding they both stitched for last year, the patterns clashed. Not the colors, not the designs, the rhythms. One gown felt frantic, the other too languid. It wasn't a disaster, just off. A subtle temporal dissonance sewn right into the seams. From the tailor's, you follow a potter balancing a wide basin of wet clay on her head. She walks to the river and back, swaying gently. Her pace never changes. Even when a chicken darts past or someone shouts her name, she glides left, right, right. Pause, left. This is her carrying rhythm passed down from her mother. It's not just functional, it's ceremonial. Her family believes that consistent rhythm while carrying water brings emotional balance. Drop your beat and your spirit sours. Keep it and you stay whole. So the rhythm becomes a test of calm. It reveals when someone is anxious, bitter, distracted. It is quite literally emotional time tracking. You try it just walking behind her, sinking your feet to hers. It's not easy. She doesn't pause where you expect. Her rhythm isn't symmetrical, but it's beautiful. You feel your shoulders loosen, your jaw unclench, and in that moment you get it. Her time is her own. That's the thread running through everyone today. The drummer mending his drum does so in triple time. A palm wine tapper climbs the tree to a 7-beat cadence. Even the vendor roasting corn does a quarter turn every third exhale, just enough to keep the kernels evenly browned. No one calls it a ritual, but it is. Because over time, these rhythms become identity loops patterns that repeat so often they become you. It's said that if someone is away from the village, their presence can still be felt through rhythm. A certain gait, a knock, a clap. If you know them well, you'll say, "Ah, that was Io's walk," or "that beat." That's how Sade grinds her peppers. Even lovers, it's believed, can find each other again after years apart, not through letters, not through photos, but by matching rhythm. A shared pulse lost and then rediscovered. One old man tells you a wild story he once reunited with a long-lost brother in another town purely by hearing the man play a beat on a calabash at market. "I knew it was him," he says. "No one else plays the resting beat like that, faint but stubborn." This idea fascinates you, that people carry their time inside their beat. It means that memory, identity, even kinship can be sonic. Not genetic, not documented, just remembered by rhythm. And yes, this even extends to disagreement. In Yoruba society, arguments aren't always resolved by logic. Sometimes two parties are asked to play their rhythm side by side, not to duel, to reveal their internal pacing. The idea, if someone's rhythm is too fast, too choppy, too forceful, they may be in the wrong, or unbalanced, or just off. It's not about guilt. It's about harmony, restoring flow. You witness a young couple doing exactly this in a side alley. He taps his point on a plank of wood, quick, sharp, forward. She counters with a slow, drawn-out pattern. The elder between them listens, then says, "You are hearing two rivers, but one is flooding." They laugh. They hug. Disagreement resolved. Not through logic, but through tempo alignment. It's brilliant. It's ancient. And it works. Even children have their own rhythms. You sit among a group playing jump rope and notice that each has a unique clap before they leap. The rhythm doesn't just prep them, it marks their turn, their signature, their moment. In a way, they're composing themselves. Literally. Now, toward evening, you join a gathering of musicians, people from different parts of the village. Each one brings their personal rhythm. The rule, don't copy, just contribute. One by one, they begin a fisherman with a tin can and stick, a mother with a rice sieve, a boy with nothing but his palms. The sounds clash at first, then slowly form a polyrhythmic whole. It's not harmony in the Western sense. It's something deeper, personal rhythms coexisting, not unified, but compatible. And isn't that the dream, to be your full self? To move in your own time and still be part of the song. You close your eyes, your foot taps, your chest settles. You have a rhythm now too. The ritual intensity of the cycle of Airy has faded into memory, but its echo still clings like morning mist. As dawn breaks, the village emerges not into routine, but into residual rhythm, the afterlife of ceremony subtly alive in gestures, smiles, and footsteps. You're drawn to the well in the center of town where mothers gather to fetch water, chatting softly in time with the early light. Each dip of a bucket is synchronized, not forced, but intuitive, a collective tempo born from communal living. Mothers pass jugs, shifting weight from one hip to another, their water gathering becoming an everyday ensemble. They hum quietly, not a song, but a beat. It's the past rhythm mingling with present motion. and most beautifully, they rarely finish alone. Often a neighbor or child picks up a jug at the right beat and takes over. There's no fanfare, no announcement, but continuity. By midday, the shift ends by itself. You walk toward a cluster of children near the open market. They've constructed a game jumping rope to a beat created by stomps, claps, voices. Each child contributes their own version of the rope's rhythm, some faster, some slower, but the game continues flexing like rubber. The rope's arc becomes a pulse and the runners respond. The count isn't verbal, it's felt. This is co-created rhythm time, not enforced but produced through shared feeling. It's improvisational but rooted. Each player listens, adapts, stays alive. Without realizing, they've built a micro-community within the larger one. Each turn, each clap, each jump loops back. They know when someone lags. They adjust. They keep the pulse alive. In one corner, an elderly man sits playing a thumb piano. Its soft metallic notes weave in and out of the communal pulse, adding color without forcing pace. Younger villagers listen, then quietly hum along echoing melodic fragments. It's temporal, layering old rhythms, supporting new ones, not dominating them. You catch the moment time today is not a scaled version of yesterday. It's a mosaic. From there, you wander toward the compound of the diviner you met earlier. Inside, there's a ritual being prepared, not urgent, not dramatic, just methodical. He's mapping a cowrie grid of 16 divisions, and at each intersection, he taps a calabash lid. The tapping marks oracular rhythm, the slow cadence of inquiry. Unless the shells fall in breaks too long or too short, he continues. When one group lands in a cluster, he pauses, hums, then taps again. The rhythm shapes the reading. The pace becomes prophecy. This reminds you Yoruba time includes periods of waiting. Not stagnant, but tuned to anticipate. If you pace for too long, angry, anxious, you break it. So the diviner's patience is part of the signal. Out on the outskirts, you see the tailor again at work, but now she's sewing inside the rhythm of idle midday. Quiet hums, soft thread pulls small pauses where she gazes out the window. You observe how she sometimes shifts tempo, pressing harder during pause, softening afterward. She says it's to keep the fabric calm, to honor the rhythm of creation. Garments shouldn't be sewn. They should be grown in rhythm. You reconnect with the potter balancing clay again. Notice she now doesn't sway mechanically. She's sinking to the market ambient beat, a low wail song of drums from nearby festivals, gossip rhythm from early traders, laughter from children. Her pace responds slow speeds. She says, I breathe it in, I breathe it out. Rhythm becomes not just regulation, but respiration. Then comes a surprising moment. A messenger arrives, quietly delivering a small calabash to the chief's compound. It's part of a peace ritual between two families that drifted apart. The calabash holds palm oil and cola nut, but it's carried on a specific beat, 3 taps on the lid, then a pause, then a single tap. This is the olive branch rhythm, a ceremonial peace signal. The chief's family responds in kind, 3 taps back, pause, 2 taps. Gesture, exchange, rhythm-based diplomacy. No words spoken. Time speaks for them. You pause near the riverbanks where fishermen untie nets. Their work rhythm has shifted. Steady drips from the river add natural percussion plop, plop, ripple, which they integrate into their untangling pace. One raps rope, snap, pause, snap, snap. The ambient environment becomes part of the timing. They don't fight it, they surrender to it. The river itself is rhythm. As twilight nears, the market returns not with urgency, but with reflection rhythm. Traders begin packing up, but not at once. First come soft brushes on baskets, then shifting sandals. Each action timed in layers. One taps basket, another rolls cloth, a child drums stones. They're packing, they're closing, they're orchestrating escape from the day. Yet what emerges is a kind of temporal choreography built through gradual exit. Finally, you gather by the communal fire, settling into the hush that comes after reflection. Someone brings a small gourd and begins a slow pattern, 2 taps, pause, 4 taps. Others hum quietly. Its end rhythm, the closure cadence that ends the day without blunt finality. It escorts people into rest. You close your eyes and feel the pulse, personal beats, shared loops, reflective closure. Not measured hours, not rigid schedules, just rhythmic time crafted, felt, lived. You have thrust yourself into the heartbeat of a culture, and through it you've realized something essential. Time is not owned, it is formed by breath, by contact, by living in rhythm. By now, your ears are more than ears. They are tuning forks. You've become a human drum, every bone and tendon vibrating with rhythm memory. You walk differently, less like someone moving across a place and more like someone flowing through measured time. You don't need a guide anymore. The sounds of the village draw you forward, and today they lead you to something rarer than sacred drums or royal rhythms. You're headed for a festival, not a big one, mind you. This isn't a king's birthday or a divine anniversary. This is a quiet celebration of timing itself. Locals call it Aye Pelu Akoko, roughly life with time. It's held only once every few years and only when elders agree that the rhythm of the village is in sync. Not economically, not politically, just rhythmically. How do they know easy? The drummers say the birds began echoing the work songs. The water from the well started dripping in 4-beat cadences. A child whistled a funeral rhythm during hide and seek. No one taught him. Time is ripe, one woman says. That's all it takes. You arrive at the festival grounds, a dusty open space rimmed by palms and laughter. But something feels different. There's no stage, no blaring speakers, no schedule. The only rule, bring your rhythm. Not your best, not your fastest, just yours. And so people come carrying beat in every form you can imagine. A man with a walking stick taps it rhythmically as he strolls. A baby slaps its mother's shoulder. A young girl with a gourd shakes it once every 20 heartbeats. No one commands. Everyone contributes. And at the center, a large circle forms. This is the pulse ring. No leader, no conductor. Just open space where people step in, drop their beat, and step out. One by one, then 2 by 2. Then a trio begins playing syncopated footwork that sets off a chain reaction. Someone outside the ring whistles. A baby giggles in perfect time. It's not a drum circle. It's a rhythmic democracy. And the result is breathtaking. What starts as randomness becomes something more emergent order. Like jazz born in a jungle, every addition layers upon the previous, not erasing but echoing and extending. You step in hesitant, but tap your beat anyway, tap, tap, pause, breath. That's all. But it fits. It finds its place. You find your place. Someone behind you calls it thread time, the idea that each person's rhythm is a thread in a larger loom. And the pulse ring. It's the textile of the village's current time. Outside the ring, children reenact scenes from older ceremonies. Not perfectly, not reverently, but rhythmically. One plays a market seller with an exaggerated clap, clap, snap sales pitch. Another mimics a drummer calling an ancestor. The others giggle, then echo her rhythm. What you're seeing is not imitation. It's rhythmic continuity. The future isn't just watching. It's playing along. Later, a few elders form a line each with their own unique talking drum, but they don't play them together. Instead, they take turns playing the historical rhythms of the village. The soundscape becomes a timeline made audible. One rhythm marks the drought 5 years ago. Another mimics the arrival of the new bridge. A third recalls the time lightning struck the shrine tree. People nod. Some weep. Not out of sadness, but because they remember through rhythm. The drums do not lie. They replay time as feeling. No fact checkers needed. The tempo tells you the truth. You're introduced to a fringe theorist who has been living here for months. He claims the Yoruba have been practicing temporal sampling long before digital samplers existed. They loop time, he explains, not just for effect, but for memory stability, like sonic scaffolding. Sounds a bit lofty, but you see his point. The village doesn't forget because it replays. Rhythm is not nostalgia, it is preservation. As the sun begins to fall, the festival shifts. The rhythm softens, lowers, mellows. This is called decline tempo, a gradual slowing of all beats, preparing people to close but gently. No horns, no clocks, just slowing rhythm. You spot the potter again this time, dancing not wildly but in a sway. She's tapping a small stick against her palm. Her eyes are closed. She's not performing. She's meditating. In Yoruba rhythm logic, this is known as introspective cadence beats used to check one's own alignment with the village's pulse. If your beat fits you, stay. If not, you retreat. This idea of being rhythmically in sync or not explains why some leave villages for weeks only to return when their beat cleans itself. One man tells you he once felt his own beat change after a death. It no longer matched the well water. So he walked to the coast and lived by the tide until it softened. Then he returned. Here, rehabilitation is rhythmic. Near the fire, someone begins playing the returning beat, a signal that the festival is closing. It's not abrupt. It's not forced. Just 5 soft taps, an increasing delay tap. Pause, tap, longer pause, tap. Everyone knows the meaning, and no one protests. Because here you don't fight time, you flow with it. You sit on the earth, now warmed by fire, surrounded by fading beats. A child beside you taps a steady tempo on your sandal. You let them, you match it. Then you whisper your own rhythm back. And together in the waning light you sit. 2 hearts, 2 beats, and 1 rhythm, shared. The next dawn arrives, not with grand fanfare, but with the drum's whisper, a single soft tap on a small dundun tucked beside a roadside hut. You open your eyes just as that ancient tone shuffles memory into morning muscles. Time doesn't start with sunrise, it starts with rhythm. You breathe in alongside the beat. This morning you'll witness the singularity rhythm, rare, precise, singular. It's a beat played only once in a lifetime for an individual who has risen to a significant threshold. Maybe excellence in craft, maybe moral leadership, maybe ancestral calling. When someone earns this beat, their name and event become part of the village's sonic lore. Today, an elder is being honored not for age, but for temporal centering. Decades ago, her rhythmic intuition during a drought predicted the right planting beat that saved crops across 3 villages. Since then, once a cycle, once per lifetime, she receives her singularity rhythm, a custom-coded sequence stretched across 7 precise tonal modulations. The drummers line up in the square 5 on dundun drums, 2 on bata flutes, shakers. No one moves. Then the lead drummer raises his stick. 1 stroke. A pause as pregnant as silence can hold. A 2nd stroke. You feel it in your rib cage. Then 3 more quick notes, each sliding higher in pitch. Then a final low echo. You sense collective inhalation settle into presence. This is her rhythm. It resonates. The tone pattern echoes the drought beat, but slowed, refined, and redirected with gratitude. The villagers listen not just for rhythm, they find meaning in its architecture. She stands then barefoot, not knowing the beat. She lifts her hands. She lets it guide her elder dance, a slow, dignified turn, each rotation matching a pulse. This isn't performance. It's integration community rhythm merged into one body, one lived life, one singular beat. You recall something scholars have long observed: the talking drum's ability to surrogate speech tones, aligning micro-timing contours and acoustic intensity precisely with Yoruba vocal tones. In fact, a recent acoustic analysis found that dundun can mimic verbal pitch and timing so accurately that listeners decode meaning even without words. ResearchGate.net Smithsonian Mag, Com+4Frontiers.org.tv ResearchGate. Net plus E4. Today's rhythm is not just symbolic, it speaks. One fringe theory suggests that rhythm can encode moral life, that those who live in tune receive their song. Whether that's metaphor or ontological truth, viewers say it feels like both. After her dance, the crowd hums the rhythm back. Children repeat it in tap steps. Vendors tap the melody on baskets. Younger drummers practice it on small, handheld drums, looping until it's etched into muscle memory. It will live. In dress embroidery, in stories, in household whispers. Then comes the echo cadence, the response beat given back by neighboring villages played across distances. In this case, drums from 3 villages about 5 kilometers away answer back delayed not by minutes, but by the time it takes sound to drift through the forest. The distant echo adds slight variation, micro timing shifts that say, "We hear you. We honor you." According to ethnomusicologists, these geographically transmitted calls can carry coherent phrases over distances up to 5 miles using redundancy and pitch modulation to avoid misinterpretation. Through low tones that bounce across hills and pauses timed for echo decay, messages travel with surprising clarity. Some scholars debate whether these echo rhythms count as messages or sacred responses. But villagers don't argue the semantics, they feel the return beat. It becomes family. As the sun climbs, the rhythm shifts into life, time steady, even moving forward. The elder sits with her community, tapping the rhythm slowly into clay cups and mortar edges. The beat becomes a quiet conversation across hands and hearts. And still you tap it, internalizing. Once, twice, pause. Slowly you breathe into it. It becomes your welcome to the rest of your day. That's when you realize Yoruba time isn't just woven through society. It's part of their temporal technology, a way of encoding events, values, identity, and passing them forward through sound. Now there's an intriguing broader debate. Scholars ask whether such systems of musical timekeeping could have predated written language as a form of societal memory storage. That is perhaps these beats encoded events across generations before text did. They call it sonic historiography. Newarker.com. Imagine rhythm archives older than parchment carried in skin wood air. As the day stretches, the rhythm softens. No longer the singular high drumming, but ambient motifs. Women pour water. Children skip, rope. A father plays a lullaby-like rhythm on a flute, all echoing the singular beat in softer echoes. The notable moment has passed. Now rhythm returns to life, less declarative, more flowful. You follow a group walking to tend crops. They hum the beat quietly. Not exactly the same, but derivatives, variations, life versions. The rhythm flows into their labor without force. It becomes backdrop and guidance. Walking through mud, carrying baskets, greeting neighbors, you realize you folded the rhythm into your body. It's not memorized, it's breathed. And now in these final moments of section 24, you feel what this entire journey has gifted you, not just stories about time, but a new way to be in time. One where meaning is breathed, heard, danced, and lived, not seized by the clock. You walk to the edge of the fields as afternoon wanes. The elder's singular beat plays faintly now on calabash lids. A communal echo lingers in still air. No alarms needed. No schedules imposed, just beat, just self, just shared time. By now, mid-afternoon, sun feels almost soft as you stroll toward a circle of elders gathered under a broad iroko tree. You sense something is about to move, not loudly, not ceremonially, but like the world gently tilting. This is the moment of the closing loop, the final section of your rhythmic odyssey through Yoruba time. The elders rise, each holding a small talking drum. They begin not in unison, but one by one in a cumulative call. Soft strokes at first, then growing gathering until the drums form a spiraling cadence that circles the clearing. It's a ritual closing beat, the rhythmic handshake of community ancestry cosmos. People step in to join on hand drums, shakers, thumb pianos, each adding their personal rhythm. Not to lead, but to weave themselves into the final collective tapestry. The pace builds, layers bloom the tempo, both older than memory and freshly invited. The closing loop is not about ending. It's about transformation of rhythm from ceremony to everyday. Someone begins humming the singularity rhythm from yesterday, slower, melancholic, but soft. Someone else echoes the baby naming beat. Another taps the echo call between villages. In this living mosaic, you hear the rhythms of life sum's birth peak, return, ancestral, cleansing identity. It makes sense now. Yoruba time is an orchestra of cycles, not singular arcs. Each section you've lived through, market beat, festival, personal rhythm, naming ceremony, death drum, was a movement in the full symphony. And now as the last crescendo fades, you're in the release, the closing loop. The elders slow their pace. The 4-beat closure cadence emerges, tap, 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 repeated 3 times with slowing intervals. It's the same cadence used to end rituals, transition seasons, or signal rhythm recalibration. As the final beat falls into quiet, people hug, nod, whisper names. You feel the space breathe. The sound doesn't vanish. It softens into heartbeat, into pulse, into presence. You too tap softly on a stone, then a leaf, then your own chest. You feel joined, not just visiting, integrated. You've witnessed transformation rhythm born, lived, remixed, closed. And now, after this closing loop, your journey through Yoruba time finds its full arc with the closing movement completed and everything coming home. In the softest evening glow, let the rhythms rest. You've been carried through festival, market, ceremony, lullaby, memory. Each beat a moment, each moment a wave. Now sense how they settle in your limbs, your breath, your heart. Rest assured your pulse hums in time with ancestral echoes. You may drift, yes, but the village's rhythms accompany you. You are anchored in cycles older than clocks. Imagine the talking drums at rest. No sound. Yet their wood and skin still resonate. That's how Yoruba time remains with quiet resonance long after the beat stops. Now let the imagery fade, dust settling in the clearing embers, paling gentle night. Birds hush, wind dims. Only a faint echo remains where the closing loop once throbbed. In that hush is your meditation, steady, self-paced whole. If sleep comes now, it won't rush. It arrives on its own beat, drifting not into unconsciousness, but into rhythmic depths you've learned to feel. Breath-measured muscles, slack mind soft. Take comfort in this. In a world that counts with numbers, you've discovered time lived as rhythm. Not chased, not measured. That means you can return anywhere, anytime to the same cadence. In your chest, in your memory, in your breath. Let that be your lullaby as the night deepens. Let rhythm cradle you. Let presence follow noise into stillness. And when the drum speaks again, whether in dream or dawn, you'll recognize it. You'll belong. Sleep now. Time rests. You are in rhythm. Sweet dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.